Hello everyone, welcome live to 3 Wide TV, tonight's broadcast of the Simbox Truck Series here in the National Sim Racing Association. Tonight, we have the Heilig presents the Heilig 240. I thought about making this logo a little bit smaller, but I don't think so. I think it is absolutely perfect. Heilig presenting the Heilig 240. What about that for a name here, folks, here on 3 Wide TV? I'm Peter Short, and joining me in the booth here tonight is Drew Eisenman. And Drew, we're in our home state here tonight. We're in the Lone Star State for Texas Motor Speedway, 240 miles, 160 laps here tonight. We saw a little bit of preview action for the Simbox Truck Series here a couple of weeks back. In fact, it was our first stream here with these guys on 3 Wide TV. What are you expecting to see here tonight?
I mean, it's interesting. What we've seen in practice so far is some pretty intense racing. We saw 4 wide coming off of 2 with these guys. I think Texas, it's still one of those kind of unknowns in that it's a relatively new track. I've never done an iRacing race on the new configuration. I have gone to a ton of the races at Texas Motor Speedway in real life, but not since its reconfiguration. So I think what we're going to be looking for is the guy that can kind of put together 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 the best, right? I think it's really easy for drivers to kind of figure out one corner, but not figure out the other when they're so different in character to what Texas has.
Yeah, without a doubt. Here we go on board with the number 13 machine of Jordan Shepler. And one of the big things, of course, about the remodel of this racetrack is turn number 3 and 4, they stayed the same as they used to be, but turn number 1 and 2, very different. Here we go, we're looking at the number 5 now of Ben Adams. Turn number 1 and 2 now very wide and much flatter than they used to be. I remember, Drew, that turn number 2 in Texas used to be kind of the calamity corner because the banking fell away so quickly that the car would end up being very tight. You'd push up into the wall. But now it's kind of tricky for a different reason. It seems like the car, the back end tends to get really light, and we've seen a couple of drivers struggle with that in practice.
Yeah, it's really tricky in turns 1 and 2. It almost feels like you can never find the bottom. You always feel like I should have the car further down, but it almost seems like there's not enough grip down there. So it's one of those things where I don't think anyone's really kind of figured out the optimal way to get through 1 and 2. You just kind of deal with it and get to 3 and 4, where I think it feels a little more comfortable. So yeah, it's certainly of the 1.5s a unique challenge, and we've kind of seen in practice, in fact, that some of the guys that we expected to be up front in practice towards the top of the timesheets, they're not quite up there. Specifically, Matt Cherry in that 48 truck. It's one of those 1.5s that I think throws guys a little bit of a curveball.
Yeah, without a doubt. And Matt Cherry, we've seen him very fast over the first few races. I mean, think about Atlanta Motor Speedway, where he almost got the pole. Almost got the pole, almost won that race, except for a few hiccups. Also very fast last week at Richmond. But Matt Cherry yet to get to victory lane this season. Definitely seems to be shooting himself in the foot. So hopefully he left the revolver at home. I know that's something you don't typically do when you come to the Lone Star State, but definitely got to be something he will be keeping in his back pocket. Hopefully not going to shoot himself in the foot, as we have a couple of trucks already out here for qualifying here in the Simbox Truck Series. Want to give a huge shout out to the people we have joining us in the chat. Tana Himmelman, of course, rooting on Andrew Himmelman, had a very strong finish last week at Richmond, hoping to back that up here tonight at the Texas Motor Speedway. Tristan Mayer going, yo, how's it going, Tristan? Great to have you back here on 3 Wide TV. Of course, racing in our Monday night series here, the Total Nonstop Racing League, as well as Coyote Jeff saying good evening. Hope you're having a good one as well. Make sure you stay active in the chat. We will be checking on the chat from time to time, giving shout outs and, of course, highlighting any questions that you might have, as here comes the number 62, Colin Ullery. He's going to come across the start-finish line, and he briefly jumped to the top of the board before JT Poole in the number 26 machine gonna jump to the top of the charts in that Simbox number 26 machine there, Drew. A great lap for that truck.
Yeah, JT was pretty quick here in a preseason race, so that's not terribly surprising. It's going to be interesting to see as these guys continue to put down laps, how these guys really filter out. The guys I'm looking at, it's definitely Ben Adams, and I believe, because I'm racking my brain, his teammate.
Andrew Himmelman?
Andrew Himmelman, yeah, that's right. Now I just focus on him on the track. Yeah, I think those guys are going to be really strong tonight. I think Chris Darling's going to be really strong tonight. But it's so critical in these races that can go pretty. I mean, we've seen a history of really long green flag runs in these things that you're going to want to start up front. Texas, from what we've seen in practice, it's not going to be terribly hard to pass, but you could put yourself at a significant deficit to the leaders if you kind of, just screw up your first lap a little bit, and then that second lap you kind of burn the new off the tires, and you're not able to maximize that. Like Chris Darling, I think he was really, really quick in practice, slowed down almost a half a second with his first qualifying lap there. We'll see what Chris can do to bring his car towards the front as Zach Howell takes the provisional pole in that 2 truck. Oh, in the 37, and then Justin White takes it away from him with a 29.5.
Yeah, the only truck in the 29.5s is that number 2 machine of Justin White right there. Bill Edwards in the number 50 machine comes into tonight as your points are. See if we can dial up the point standings. There they are on the center of your screen. 13 markers over Jeffrey Johnson Jr. in second, Doug Milliner in third, Paul Bilson in fourth, Jeff Price rounding out your top 5. Of course, Jeff Price got that win at Atlanta Motor Speedway, very similar to the 1.5 mile that we have here tonight. So I'll tell you what, Drew, keep an eye on that number 14 truck here tonight. But we have a new provisional pole sitter. The number 13 machine, Jordan Shepler, you see him on your screen right now, just jumped to the top of the boards. That's a very strong run out of this number 13 machine. And now second place in points, Jeffrey Johnson Jr. Let's see what he can do, as we're now just down to about a minute left here in this qualifying session. A long race here tonight, and definitely not the lap Jeffrey Johnson Jr. was looking for. Second place in points, currently scored 24th out of 26 trucks that has so far taken time, as Paul Bilson getting out there on the racetrack. A little bit of a new look to that number 51 machine here tonight. And I'll tell you what, definitely got the chrome and bling on that number 51 tonight. Oh, it gets a little bit loose there coming through turn number 2.
I mean, we talked about how tricky turn 1 and 2 can be, and we saw Paul really, really kind of lose the rear towards the center exit of that. We'll see how that affects his lap time as he is cruising through 3 and 4. Didn't quite get down to the bottom, but that's not a huge deal here as he now gets into the tri-oval across the start-finish line, and this will put Paul, really hurt his lap time. That slip-up only 26th for Paul on that first lap there, Peter.
Yeah, and he's one of the only trucks out there on the racetrack. The only other truck I'm seeing right now is this man right here, Monty Glover, yet to put in a lap time in the number 10 machine. We'll see what he can do when he comes across the stripe here with just 2 seconds left. That's leaving it to the very last second. Unfortunately, not going to have much pace. 27th out of the 28 trucks to take time in that session. We're not going to have any heat races here tonight because of the fact that we don't have enough drivers to do so. So that's kind of the good news. The other good news here, Drew, is that we have tonight's Sim Racing Shirts Pole Award winner, and it will be the number 13 machine of Jordan Shepler, yet to end up out there on the racetrack. There is Andrew Himmelman. Definitely have Tana Himmelman rooting on that number 4 machine here tonight. A great run for him. We'll see how everything lines up here in just a brief moment. But I do know Jordan Shepler in that number 13 machine was your pole sitter just a moment ago. And Drew, there's your Sim Racing Shirts Pole Award winner, and why don't we go through tonight's starting lineup, starting with the front row there, Drew.
Jordan Shepler, as previously mentioned, our pole sitter. Starting on the outside of him will be the 2 of Justin White, followed by Zach Howell in third. Nathan Maurer will be in 4th position to the outside of that 37 truck, with Bill Edwards, our points leader, starting P5, followed by JT Poole in that Ricky Bobby 26. Jeff Price will be starting P7 in that 14 truck. Already has a great win this year. Robert Dudley will be P8, Tim Hammond P9, and James Lorello rounding out our top 10.
Yeah, on row number 6 on the inside is Matt Cherry in that number 48 machine. Watch for him to be on point here tonight. Joey Doucette in the number 61 starting to his outside. Andrew Himmelman will be rolling off from the inside of row number 7. Jamar Dumas, fastest in practice session a little while ago. Expect that Haviland number 28 machine to be working his way towards the front. He'll roll off 14th. On the next row, Ben Adams on the inside with Colin Ullery to his outside. Row number 9, Chris Darling. Expect him to march his way to the front. Very, very fast last week at Richmond. Unfortunately, didn't quite go his way. I think he was expecting around the halfway mark to possibly walk away with a win at Richmond. Didn't happen. He'll be starting here tonight, 17th. TJ Buck, who won the preseason event that we had here at the Texas Motor Speedway in the Captain Crunch number 84, he will be rolling off from the 18th position. Rounding out your top 20, though, here tonight, the number 24 machine of Ben Mashburn and the 014 of GJ Boydell there, Drew.
And Aaron Mack in that 35 truck will roll off P21. To his outside will be Michael Mooney in that 88. Peter Serto in the 32 will start 23rd with Jeffrey Johnson right behind him to his outside in 24th. Raymond Heilig will be P25 with Paul Bilson. Again, we talked about that in qualifying. Kind of a disappointing performance for him, I'm sure, as he had that big slip up through 1 and 2. He will be starting P26 with Monty Glover in that 10 truck starting 27th. Doug Milliner will start 28th. And now we get to the two guys that unfortunately did not set times in the 77 of Doug Neal, in the 69 of David Visser, starting P29 and P30 respectively.
Yeah, it looks like the number 69 machine isn't out there on the racetrack, so looks like he will not be starting. Meanwhile, the field making their way through turn number 3 and 4 behind the iRacing.com pace car. The pace lights are off. We'll get set to go green flag here around the 1.5 mile raceway just north of Fort Worth, Texas, Denton County. And we're about to go green flag here for tonight's 240-mile race, 160 laps, green flag in the flagman's hand, and we're underway, Drew. Just 160 laps to go.
Yeah, just 160, but great start for our pole sitter in that 13 truck of Jordan Shepler. The two, not so great, but we'll see which line's going to prevail through 1 and 2. Outside lane carried itself pretty well, but it definitely didn't have as big of an advantage as I thought it might, as that 2 of Justin White will slot into P3 as Zach Howell was able to get around him. But we have a side-by-side racing there for 4th, right at the top 5 with that 971 and the 14 of Jeff Price. So, yeah, I mean, the front 4 have kind of, as I say that, we kind of got a battle for the lead. Oh, the leader's turn, the 13 truck.
And that's going to bring out the first caution here tonight. It happened right up at the front of the field, Drew. You caught it. Let's see if we can catch that one here on this 3-wide TV replay. And he's got the number 37 machine, Zach Howell right behind him, and just a little bit of a nudge got him loose, another little nudge, and into the outside wall. That is not how you want to start your night. Now, the good news is it looks like just a single car accident here at Texas Motor Speedway. Let's see if we can see that one from high atop in the blimp cam here, Drew. And it looks like there was a nudge and then a second nudge, just enough to put the 13 machine around.
It certainly looks like kind of one of those funky iRacing deals where, I mean, I don't know that it wouldn't have been a wreck in real life, but that 13 truck just flew sideways with that second contact and hard contact to the outside wall. And I don't think anybody else got into him, but that's some pretty significant damage for our pole sitter. That is certainly not the way you want to start out the race. He only got 1 lap led, and now he's down into P28 and has quite a lot of damage to fix on that 13. As now we are on board with the 37. You see just a little bit of contact going in, and then that second contact, that's what does it. That's what sends that 13 truck out of control and into the outside wall. And it's going to be probably a pretty long night for our pole sitter.
Yeah, without a doubt. You see the flagman there frantically waving the yellow flag as the field passes by here on the front stretch. Now, it looks like he's going to give his arm a little bit of a rest. Let's go check out the chat. Kelsey Jalowski saying, let's go Serto, rooting on Peter Serto here tonight. Where is Peter Serto right now? Currently being scored down in the 20th position. There he is in the number 32 machine, and he started back in 23rd, so he's already picked up a couple of positions here from the start of the race. So that's good news here for Peter Serto. Let's see if we can bring up a little bit of the information. There you see it down there, 3 positions gained. And running just inside the top 20. We'll have to see if he can work his way up through the field. So far, the biggest mover tonight is actually Doug Neal in the number 77 machine, Drew, your pole sitter from this season's Simbox 250 that we had at Daytona to start off the regular season. That Simbox number 77 machine, great looking paint scheme, and of course Simbox, the series sponsor this year in the Simbox Truck Series, given the world good quality button boxes for a quality price. That's right, folks. If you're in the market for a button box in iRacing, go check them out. You'll see their link up there in the top left-hand corner of your screen here on the 3Wide TV broadcast, and it's a very good-looking race truck. I love that combination there of red, white, and blue, Drew.
Yeah, it's the three best colors in the world. They're red, white, and blue. So yeah, fantastic scheme, and I'm partial to the number 77. So definitely rooting for Doug Neal in that fantastic Simbox truck. Up front, not a lot of movement. James Lorello started 10th up to P6. Not too bad for him. We're looking at Doug Neal up from P29 to P24. Obviously the big loser in this whole kind of first few laps of the race was that 13 truck, which it's so unfortunate because there's really nothing that Jordan could have done, right? I mean, maybe just giving him that top, but I mean, you're not expecting, I don't think, to get running like that guy to run into your rear bumper going into turn one on lap 2. So we'll see. I imagine he's got quite a long time to spend on pit road here as we're taking a look at his stop. Yeah, and I don't think he's taking tires. He's probably did that the last pit stop, and this is all about trying to get that damage as repaired as possible as time allows under these yellows. Luckily, quite a bit of time here at Texas to get that damage repaired. And then it's early enough in the race where I think he's going to have enough time to get that thing pretty healthy come probably the longer runs that we're anticipating seeing later in this race.
And Zach Howell now looking out back at the number 2 machine of Justin White. Looks like Howell here going to hold on to the lead. Now we'll see here briefly on whether or not these caution lights turn off. If these caution lights turn off, we'll go back to green flag racing here in just a lap. Kind of a lengthy caution here. Indeed, those caution lights do turn off, so that's good news for the field as we will go back to green flag racing, and hopefully we can stay green for a little bit longer than we did under that pretty much one lap green flag run that we had to start tonight's 240-mile race presented by Ray Heilig. That's right, folks. The Ray Heilig presents the Ray Heilig 240, and I just absolutely love tonight's race logo. There you see it right there, folks. If that doesn't give you a little bit of a chuckle in the chat, I don't know what will, because that is quality race logo, Drew.
I don't want to give credit where I'm not certain credit's due, but I believe Chris Darling put through that logo together, as he tends to do quite a bit for logos in this league. And if he did, that is fantastic work by him. It's certainly unique, and you won't forget it once you see it. So the Ray Heilig presents the Ray Heilig 240. So yeah, we are now double file here through turns 3 and 4, looking to get this race back underway as the 37 truck of Zach Howell, who kind of unfortunately caused that first caution. He is going to be our leader with Justin White to his outside, who started P2. We'll see if he can do a little bit better here as we are waiting for the green flag to fall, and there it goes. Green flag is out. The 37, great restart. 2 again, kind of struggled on the outside. I wonder if those guys on the outside are experiencing a little wheel spin. We know that can happen in real life, where that outside just isn't able to get the power down quite like the inside line is able to. So Justin White will fall from P2 down to P4 as our points leader Bill Edwards moves up into second.
Yeah, look at the gaggle of trucks out back of this number 2 machine. I'm looking right there around James Morello. Look at Matt Cherry. Remember, Drew, we mentioned that Matt Cherry is going to be one of those drivers that we're going to have to keep an eye on. And now here tonight, he's gotten himself hard down to the 7th position. He's gained 4 positions here in the early going. That is an absolute fantastic start for that truck. Is that some smoke that I saw a little bit further back in the pack there, Drew? I thought I might have seen something, maybe someone with connection issues back there, as it seems like everyone is up to speed. There's your pole sitter, Jordan Shepler. He's struggling with that damage he received on that number 13 machine. From first to worst, essentially, here in the opening couple laps with all that damage, which is definitely not what he wanted to have happen. A very tough break, and like you said, he's in for a long night.
Yeah, it's definitely not what you want to see. Kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum, as you just mentioned, Matt Cherry in that 48 truck didn't show a ton of speed in practice and qualified outside of the top 10 there in P11. So interesting to see. Oh, is almost 3 wide coming out of turn 4 there. Pretty aggressive by that 26 of JT Poole as he lost quite a few positions that last lap. But yeah, Matt Cherry, really solid start to this race, considering we were talking earlier in practice, what is this 48 truck going to have for these guys? He's been so quick on these intermediate tracks, and he didn't seem like he quite had that, but he's definitely displaying that he is going to be one of those guys that you're going to have to beat later in this race if you want to win.
And we do have a new race leader up in front. Nathan Maurer has taken the 971 machine to the front. And now look at Zach Howell under fire from the 2 of Justin White. Looks like those two are going to settle it before entry into turn number 1. Lorello going to slide into 4th. And Drew, he's already got 2 wins to his name in that number 9 truck. 1 at Atlanta, 1 last week at Richmond. He's on a little bit of a roll with that number 9 machine. Definitely someone you're going to have to contend with here tonight if you want to get to victory lane. There's JT Poole backing up his strong qualifying run with a 6th place run here in the early going. So far so good for most of the field. Now the number 13 machine of Jordan Shepler still losing ground to the pack, but we're seeing some good racing here. I'm looking back here. Look at these drivers. Ben Adams there in the number 5 machine on the outside. Look at Chris Darling there in the number 47. He's trying to work his way up right behind the number 24, Ben Mashburn. This is a good gaggle of trucks. Someone back there trying to poke out. Was that Peter Serto? I think it was. Almost thinking about 3 wide there through the quad over here.
Certainly some really intense racing throughout the field as we have side-by-side basically all the way from, I believe, 2nd position basically through the field. Oh, yeah, I saw that smoke a little bit as well. I couldn't tell if something happened. Yeah, at the 37 truck, our leader on the restart up into the outside wall.
Let's see what happened here. This is on the 3-wide TV replay. This is down the backstretch. We might have to go to the blip cam for this one. 3 wide. And, just contact there between the 2 and the 37. And the 37 there making heavy contact with the outside wall. So Zach Howell getting stuck up there in the wall. He's finally going to get off of it, but he's going to lose basically all the track position he had. Let's see if we can get possibly one more look here, Drew, of this. Slow it down just a little bit here in slow motion. Watch those white lines, folks. The 2 and the 37 both are working their way around the racetrack, and I think that's one of those racing deals, 3 wide at this point of the race. Probably not the best idea. And you see right there, it didn't work out well for Zach Howell as he's into the outside wall. Now we stay green flag, so we're going to jump back live, and that's good news for the whole field. But now James Dorello up into 2nd, and look at Matt Cherry in that number 48 machine, Drew. We said we expected him to be fast, and we were surprised by his slow pace early on, but now he's going for the 2nd position on the inside of Lorello.
It seems like no matter where we go, that 48 truck is going to be up there. As far as an incident's concerned, there's almost a little bit of instant karma considering what happened in the first caution of the race. It's certainly not what you wish upon any driver, but that kind of stuff happens, right? It just took one of those guys backing out going into 3 to avoid that wreck, and all 3 of them chose to not do that, and then, what happened. But yeah, Matt Cherry looking really aggressive here. He definitely wants that lead. It kind of seems like what we've been seeing so far at these bigger tracks, this draft effect seems to really be keeping these front guys really grouped up together, as there's a little bit of a gap down to 5th place of Bill Edwards, but not too much. I think that if these leaders keep mixing it up, keep passing each other, that we're going to see it pull the rest of that top 10 closer to those guys out front as we have another caution.
Yeah, caution is out, trying to see what happened here. And I do think, well, Hold on. Having some trouble lining up this replay. Yeah, I think it was right there. Oh, yeah. Looks like Peter Serto, Monty Glover, the number 10 machine. Look at, oh, Glover did everything he could to try and keep it riled up. But look at Jeffrey Johnson Jr. there, Drew. Comes into tonight second place in points. He got a piece of that one as well. We'll have to see if we can go back just a little bit more and see if we can get a little bit better look at this one. Here we are coming down the back stretch. Let's see if we can jump up to the blimp cam. There we go. Going into turn number 3. Second time we've seen contact in turn number 3. Just 2 trucks ending up at the same spot. Just what a shame there for Monty Glover. He almost had that thing safe.
Yeah, it almost, I thought he had it, and then it just hooked right at the end there. And then Jeffrey Johnson, there's just not a whole lot there. Triple J in that 33 truck could have done. You know, the 10, yeah, just he's good. Hooked to the outside wall. There's no way he could have anticipated that he was going to fling across the track like that. That's got to be really disappointing for that 33 truck. He wasn't having a great start to his night, and then, you know, to really not be able to avoid essentially what should have been a single car wreck has to be really frustrating for him.
Meanwhile, up at the front, pretty much everyone coming down pit road here for their first pit stop of the night, led down by Nathan Maurer in that 971. Looks like the 33 of Jeffrey Johnson Jr. has pulled that truck to pit road with a fast tow, so we'll have to follow up on that. No cars a lap down or more, so we won't get to see the Brookstone Animal Hospital Lucky Dog Award winner just yet, but you see all those trucks finding their pit stops. Is that the number 2 machine there? Yes, it is, Drew. Justin White has a little bit of right side damage as everyone's going to head off pit road. Look at that scramble coming off pit road as the number 13 just scooting on through. But definitely going to be interesting to see how that damage affects that number 2 truck, because we saw him pretty quick in the early going. But Nathan Maurer is going to head back out onto the racetrack as your race leader here, as we have eclipsed the 10% race distance, now working lap number 20. Second caution flag of the night. Drew, we haven't mentioned the weather here tonight, but ambient air temperature 66 degrees Fahrenheit, 69 degrees track temperature. There's going to be a whole lot of grip in this racetrack here tonight.
Absolutely. It's considering the summer that Texas has experienced, we've kind of had a nice welcome break in the heat recently, about the past week or so. So a beautiful night here in Denton, Texas, 66 degrees, only 2 degrees hotter, 68 track temp. As you mentioned, a ton of grip, which is, I think, why we're seeing these guys being a little bit more aggressive. They have that mechanical grip to rely on, and it's enabling them to kind of put their trucks in positions where if this track were significantly hotter, if it were 100 plus degrees, 110 plus degrees track temp, I don't think that they would be as confident in their truck to be able to make these kind of aggressive moves. Go, as we saw, 3 wide into turn 3, which resulted in a wreck. We've seen guys just racing really hard, kind of almost bump drafting going into turn 1. And I think it's because these guys have a little false sense of security because the track temp is so cool and these things are generating so much grip there, Peter.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It seems like whenever you get a racetrack that has a lot of grip due to a cooler track temperature, like what we're seeing here tonight, at least from my past experience, usually it leads to more cautions because trucks are going to be closer together. They have that full sense of security, and as those tires wear out, all of a sudden you reach that cliff, and then you have some drivers going backwards through the field, you have some drivers going forward in the field, yada, yada, yada. It makes for a lot of action just due to that weather that you see down there in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. But let's see if we can bring up the race summary so far. 2 cautions for 7 lap, 2 lead changes. And the average pace under green flag has been pretty darn quick here tonight at 178 miles an hour. And the looks like Joey Doucette in the number 61 machine has had the fastest lap as well. So great job by Doucette to turn a 29.493. Very, very quick lap here with a little bit of help from the draft. But we'll see if those pace car lights turn off. And indeed they do. So we're going to go back to green flag racing here shortly. The Windsors are rooting on Bill Edwards and all the S2R machines. Currently a couple of them up near the front. Bill Edwards there, your points leader coming in tonight. We'll flash up your points graphics real fast. 13-point advantage over Jeffrey Johnson Jr., and with Johnson Jr. having his troubles here in the early going. Oh, Ben Mashburn there in the number 24 machine going top side of the racetrack a little bit further back in the Sunkiss number 24 machine. But Bill Edwards here, Drew, we mentioned how good of a race it was for him last week at Richmond, came runner-up, and then here tonight, his closest competitor having early troubles. Bill Edwards definitely with a very strong start to the season.
He's certainly been the guy that has been able to consistently keep himself out of trouble in his truck towards the front, and that's why he's the points leader, right? And that's happening again tonight. Now, it is very early. We're on lap 22 of 160, so certainly a long way to go. Definitely don't want to count those chickens before they hatch. But he's, once again, where his competitors are faltering a little bit, Bill Edwards has been able to keep himself up towards the front. As we are waiting for this restart to occur, 971 and Nathan Maurer will be leading us to the green flag. Pace car is off. Now that 971 truck is in control of this restart, and the green flag is out. Actually, Matt Cherry, the best restart we've seen from that outside lane all night. He gets a heck of a jump on that 971 truck. We'll see. I don't think he jumped it, but I mean, whenever that outside truck gets a little bit of a lead on that inside guy, the guy that's controlling that restart is always a little prone to administrative judgment. As we're kind of borderline 3 wide going into turn 3 there, as JT Poole is looking to take that lead from that 971 to Nathan Maurer.
Yeah, that number 26 machine of JT Poole, we rode on board on that restart with Bill Edwards, and Edwards sliding. Oh, we got one car in the back. I think that was the 62 machine of Colin Ullery, who just smacked the wall coming through the quad oval. Let's see if we can go back and quickly catch a look at this one. Yeah, there you see it. He was running back there around the number 2 machine of Justin White and just smacked that wall coming through the quad oval. And Drew, I've done that before. Sometimes you just lose where that outside wall is, and that's what happens. Just like that, now that 62 going to have to deal with that right side damage. This racetrack is a pretty aero-sensitive racetrack as Matt Cherry trying to go for the race lead in that Max Grafix number 48 machine on the low side. Looks like he's going to be able to clear JT Poole. And Matt Cherry, who's led the most laps so far this season, he's back out front.
We've seen that 48 truck being so strong in these intermediate tracks. And another guy that we've seen kind of up front, definitely late in races, the 14 of Jeff Price, moving up into P2, is we've just seen kind of this lead kind of cycle through these guys as that 14 truck taking a little bit of a look there on that 48 of Matt Cherry, not able to make it work, as I think that kind of compromised his apex speed. As JT Poole's actually been able to do okay there on the outside, but as soon as he got to that lead, Matt Cherry was able to make a move on him, and now that 26 truck is going to have to fight those guys off on the outside. But it's going to be interesting. Who can establish themselves as that race leader? It's been so difficult for those guys to stay up front. It's going to take an exceptional drive, and certainly we've seen that out of Matt Cherry so far, with basically all but closing several races early this season, as he definitely wants to see this as Nathan Maurer and Jeff Price racing side by side. Maybe that'll allow Matt to get out there with a little bit of a lead and try to break away a little bit, but that's going to be certainly difficult here at Texas.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I mean, it really is impressive to see this front pack and how hard they're racing here. I mean, folks, we still have over 100 laps to go, and some of these drivers 2 and 3 wide, almost racing like it's the final lap. And we've seen some great action here out of the Simbox Truck Series here early this season. I know the first few races were grandstand finishes, Drew. It basically had us on our toes all the way to the checkered flag, and hopefully we can see more of that action here tonight. One of the drivers I've been impressed with in the early running here is the number 48 machine of Chris Darling. You see him there in the Fleet Pride Toyota Tundra on that inside roof. He's made his way now up into third. He started all the way back in the 17th position. So he's gained a ton of spots here in the early running in that racetrack. Great job. And also Jeff Price there in the number 14 machine. He's gained a lot of positions. In fact, you have to go all the way back to the number 50 machine of Bill Edwards, who has lost a significant amount of spots since the restart. He's all the way back now to 13th. Definitely not the restart he was looking for. And James Lorello's now back to the 10th position. So some of the fast runners early on is, almost contact there between Lorello and Mashburn. Going down the back stretch, I think Lorello going to slot down to that inside groove in front of that number 24 machine. He's trying to get a run on the number 25 of Tim Hammond there. Hammond running right behind the 51 of Paul Bilson, who's had a great recovery in the early portion of this race. Remember, Bilson had that slip up under qualifying, had to really start at the back of the field, and now he himself has gotten up into 8th. So definitely a race of comers and goers so far. This has been interesting, and up at the front, Matt Cherry's lost the race lead. Nathan Maurer back up to the front.
Yeah, that's certainly a heck of a recovery for Paul Bilson after, certainly not having the qualifying effort that he would want. But yeah, Chris Darling as well. You know, we saw a ton of pace out of him in that 47 truck, and he has been, he didn't, I don't think, displayed what we saw in practice and qualifying, but he certainly has shown quite a bit of race pace as he is now up to second, looking to make a move on Nathan Maurer. As we also see JT Poole's made a nice little recovery from slipping back. It almost kind of looks like old Bristol or maybe Martinsville back when the inside line would just prevail so much, and if you got kind of hung up on that outside lane, you just kept losing spots and losing spots and losing spots. I think what we saw out of Bill Edwards, that's what we've seen out of several of these guys, is that once you kind of get up and kind of out of the groove, it's really hard to recover before another truck kind of ducks back onto the inside of you. And now we're starting to see those guys that have kind of had that happen to them, and JT Poole and some others kind of being able to work their way back up. One guy who hasn't, Bill Edwards, which certainly is disappointing, as we were singing his praises under this last yellow. But up front, quite competitive. JT Poole trying to maybe make a move on the outside of that 47 truck, maybe take that wide entry, carrying a bit of, certainly quite a lot of exit speed on that 47, as he's going to be making a move to the outside of that 47 of Chris Darling. It's going to be tough for JT to make that work on the outside, but he certainly is giving it all he can. Is now Matt Cherry maybe trying to take advantage of that and move up in third.
Yes, things really just cycling up at the front here, Drew. One thing that I think is absolutely amazing, I know we're only on lap number 35, as Chris Darling now going to duck to the inside, is out of the top 10 drivers, only Tim Hammond has lost positions. Every other driver inside the top 10 has gained positions from the start of this race, including Chris Darling trying to get up to the front. He started back in 17th, now looking for the race lead, so he's gained 16 positions. Matt Cherry right behind him. He started outside the top 10 as well. He's trying to get the second position. Really just a little bit of a conveyor belt, just cycling from one lead to another. Yet another lead change here, and look at them again fan out here on the backstretch. And one thing I noticed in that first green flag run that we had was the field at this point started to get separated a little bit, but under this run they're more compact. You're not seeing those big gaps develop between around the 8th to 10th position. Now they're pretty much all single file.
Yeah, I wonder if that is a product of fresher tires under this restart versus previous ones. Right, certainly fresh tires will allow these trucks to be closer together, as we are looking at 3 wide down the backstretch. We've seen how that's worked before. Morello wisely thinks better of that and will duck back in that 9 truck. But yeah, I think that these fresh tires are just enabling these guys to really take advantage of that draft. We're starting to see them, especially towards the tail end of the top 10, start to spread apart a little bit, but they're certainly really, really bunched up here at the front. And again, I think it's the product of, we know with these trucks, they've really cut down the horsepower of these things the last few years, and that's really, really basically made the draft so much more important, even at a 1.5 mile track that you would assume. Actually, if the quote-unquote dirty air would hinder you as being the second place truck, I think it actually is really beneficial, at least in iRacing, to be that guy behind the leader and be able to kind of make use of that draft. As now we are seeing that 48 truck of Matt Cherry basically do that to Chris Darling in that 47 truck.
Yeah, yet another lead change here tonight. Kind of reminds me of Daytona and Talladega, Drew. It seems like we have a new race leader every 4 or 5 laps. Is now Lorello. He said, you know what, Matt, you got your nose out front, but I don't want you to even lead another lap because I want the race lead. And Lorello going to drop to the inside. Oh, almost contact there in the first kink of the tri-oval. Cherry able to avoid any type of repercussions of that one. but Lorello's going to lead that lap. Darling now back to second. He's trying to get back past Matt Cherry, and JT Poole running back behind them. Jeff Price a little bit further back, and then Nathan Maurer, he slid back to sixth in the 971, and then Joey Doucette in the 61 machine had the fastest lap. Let's see if we can bring up the race information. Now the fastest lap has gone to Chris Darling. In fact, it's gotten about 0.2 of a second faster since the last time we looked, but we're now up to 8 different lead changes in the first 40 laps here. That's a lead change every 5 laps. Like I said, Drew, really reminds me of when you go to Daytona and Talladega with how many lead changes we've had.
It certainly is reminiscent of those kind of larger restricted plate tracks, which you would assume wouldn't really be the case here at a significantly shorter and tighter track in Texas, especially with the way kind of 1 and 2 is, where I think a lot of guys just kind of struggle figuring out exactly what they need to do because it's so different from 3 and 4. But the lap times in this run, since lap 61 to now we're on, I'm sorry, that was practice rather, from lap 25-ish on the restart to now lap 41, they're only about a second off pace here after about 15 laps. That's really not too significant a tire fall off. But these guys do run quite a bit less fuel than these trucks are able to carry. I believe they run, 65% fuel? Yep. And so I wonder how far off pit stops are in the future, and which of these guys, like we've seen Matt Cherry do early this season, are going to be looking to short pit and maybe take a little bit of advantage out of that. I wonder how far away we are there, Peter. Do you have an estimate for us, possibly?
I think we're probably about 17 or so laps away from needing to come down pit road for green flag pit stops. Maybe a little bit more than that. I think these drivers usually get around 60 to 66 laps on a full tank of fuel, so I think we're looking at 40 to 44 laps. It's been 24 laps or so since we last had these drivers on pit road. You're riding on board with the number 28 machine here, Jamar Nunes. He's currently down in the 10th position, right behind JT Buck. Buck currently running in 9th, and as I say that, look at Bill Edwards in the number 50 machine. He's starting to make his way forward again. Remember, he slid back to around 13th or so. He's back inside the top 10, so good job here by Edwards. All over the back bumper of the number 84. There actually might have been contact there on entry to the corner. I'm going to see if we can go back and catch that one on the replay, because that was really tight here. Going off into turn number 1, you see Bill Edwards. He looks like he might have had to check up there. Went up the racetrack behind that number 84 machine. Was there contact? And if there's no contact, that's about as close as you can get. In fact, it looked like the 84 machine might have had a little bit of a wiggle. But Bill Edwards now, I think he's actually got around that number 84 machine. Yes, he has, as we're back live here at Texas Motor Speedway. He now has a long gap to close up to the back bumper of number 14 of Jeff Price.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a struggle for him. And when Bill went into that corner, it almost looked like what the Indy cars do when you get a little too close to the guy in front of you and it just completely washes up the track because you have no downforce. Now, we know the truck's not nearly as aerosensitive as something like an Indy car, but it definitely kind of visually appeared pretty similar to that, as I think that anyone who's driven an Indy car like Iowa has made the mistake of following the car in front of them a little too close into the corner, has experienced that phenomena before. But yeah, it's I think Bill, he's made a nice little recovery as we saw him fall quite a bit of a ways out of the top 10. He's now back up into 9th, and I wonder how much he was saving his stuff. He's been pretty quick here these last few laps, and I know he's certainly going to be looking to chase down these leaders, which currently is James Laurel in that 9 truck, as these top 5 guys have kind of started to separate themselves out of from the rest of this pack. And we haven't kind of seen that revolving door of leaders that we saw earlier, though they are certainly close up front here.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, Chris Darling now all over the back bumper of the number 9 machine of Lorello. Darling wants to get that race lead as Nathan Maurer in the 971 machine was trying to get back up onto the podium spot in that 971 machine, getting underneath the 48 of Matt Cherry, slide him up into 3rd. Let's see if we can look out back of this number 9 machine, because I'll tell you what, there's a little bit of damage back there, Drew. Just a little bit, just enough to ruffle the rear spoiler of Lorello's fast hot rod. Do you think that's affecting him, or do you think that's just kind of a cosmetic deal?
I mean, in iRacing, it can be so hard to tell. I think you can have pretty significant appearing damage that doesn't really hinder you very much, and you can have very, very minor visual damage that really affects the performance of your truck. It certainly doesn't seem to be having an effect on James Lorello, as he is, Chris Darling kind of got up there, challenged him a little bit, but he was able to maintain that, and now keeping about a truck length between him and Chris Darling. As I say that, Chris Darling gets a pretty good run off of turn 4 here. But now we've kind of really seen these leaders start to spread out, as the top 3 have really broken away, rather, from that 26 of JT Poulos. Now we are seeing our first round of pit stops with, no surprise, the guy that likes to short pit so much, and Matt Cherry leading the field onto pit road.
Yeah, I take everything back I said. The commentator's wrong tonight, folks. I said they'd be pitting probably about 10 laps from now. But yeah, Matt Cherry already coming down pit road, and here comes more drivers coming down pit road. James Lorello in the 47 of Darling. Look at that, side by side coming to their pit box. They're going to peel off. Nathan Maurer is going to assume the race lead as of right now. But I think the big question is the 47 and the number 9. Can they get into their pit box nice and neatly? Yes is the answer for the number 47 machine. Yes is the answer for James Lorello, because you and I know, Drew, getting onto pit road's one thing, but getting into your pit box and hitting your marks, getting these trucks slowed up as Nathan Maurer peels off, that's very difficult to do.
Yeah, it's certainly, I have lost quite a few races. I mean, I say lost. I've taken myself out of contention for quite a few races just by being a little too aggressive trying to get in the pit box, and ultimately you're maybe going to gain a couple hundredths of a second by being aggressive into your pit box, but sliding through will certainly cost you a lot more than that. So I think these guys, you can gain quite a bit on entry. You can definitely gain quite a bit on exit. I always feel far more comfortable pushing the exit of pit road rather than the entry, because you can't really speed once you're off pit road. You can just get a little sideways, but getting in, you can get a huge penalty for being too fast. As now we've seen Matt Cherry in that undercut. I think it's going to work out pretty well for him, as we are now looking at the 88, looking to make his way on pit road. Definitely one of the guys that's sitting a little bit longer. Really conservative entry onto pit road for that 88 truck, is I believe Matt Cherry is going to cycle to our race lead here.
And you see, he has a little bit of an advantage over the number 9 machine of Lorello. Maurer just coming out pit road with JT Poole. So things continuing to cycle through here. I think, as of right now, every truck will have come down pit road for this pit stop sequence. So Drew, 30 to 34 laps is presumably our pit window here tonight, which is a little bit shorter than I was expecting, but I'll need to jot that number down for later in the season. But now Lorello closing in on the back bumper of that number 48 machine of Matt Cherry. He's got slightly fresher tires. He pitted 1 lap later, so he has 1 lap fresher tires in that number 48 truck. Caught him in a hurry, and with all the draft that the number 48 machine is giving off the back bumper of that race truck, it definitely is playing to the advantage right now of the number 9 machine, as well as some of the trucks out back.
A big wreck up front.
And that is your top 5. Boom. Just like that. The top 5 just eliminated from this race. That is absolutely disastrous. Let's see what happened here on this replay, Drew. It isn't often that we see your top 5 just like this go up in smoke. 48 of Cherry goes around, 9 of Lorello gets in there, 47 of Darling involved, JT Poole smashing the inside wall, and all of a sudden this race is blown wide open. That's nuts.
Yeah, that is an absolute disaster, especially for Chris Darling and those guys. I mean, certainly it is for Matt Cherry. Yeah, I just don't think Lorello was expecting that closing rate out of 2. And then, once you get into him, there's not a lot that anybody can do. That 971 tries to go low, 26 tries to go high. There is just literally nowhere for these trucks to go, as I think basically the entirety of our top 5 is going to have significant damage that is probably going to remove them from the ability to win this race. That is kind of surprising. I don't think we've seen, we've certainly seen aggressive driving, but we haven't really seen something like that happen up front, as now James Morello is going to get an EOL, as, man, just a ton of really big impacts for that top 5. I don't think I've ever seen that at Texas in iRacing, seen basically the top 5 guys just kind of all get involved in one big wreck. certainly is something I've never seen, Peter.
So, Drew, one thing I want to highlight. Watch this onboard shot. It looks to me like the 48 of Cherry might get a little bit loose right there. You could kind of see the back end of the car getting a little bit light. And I don't know if that was due to the contact from the number 9 machine, kind of what came first, the chicken or the egg. But it definitely seemed like that number 48 machine was just a little bit off. And I don't really know what, like I said, what came first, the chicken or the egg. Let's see if we can see this from up above. We'll once again put it in slow motion. But watch this, Drew, right about there. I think he clips the apron just a little bit. It unnerves the truck. You can see the yaw in the truck right there. And that's really what allows Lorello to get up into that back bumper of that number 48 machine. Because Cherry hit that apron, it unloaded that truck. And unfortunately for drivers like the 47 of Darling, nowhere for him to go. Look at Maurer there in the 971 getting involved. And JT Poole, I think Poole got the biggest piece of the accident right here when he slams into that inside wall, nose first. That's just absolutely disaster for your front cars. I mean, you don't expect to have that happen when you're one of the lead trucks. You just don't, and all of a sudden, they're out of it. Just like that. Your 5 fastest trucks, at least under that last green flag run, poof. And now, new race leader is Ben Adams over Doug Neal, TJ Buck, Andrew Himmelman, and Doug Milliner inside the top 5. Haven't really mentioned that number 6 machine of Milliner so far here tonight, but definitely going to be an interesting last half of the race here as we're closing in on the halfway mark.
Yeah, that was a really great insight from you, Peter. I didn't even notice that. That's probably why Lorello closed up so much. He wasn't. I mean, I would assume that with the amount of wheel that 48 had to throw into to that truck after he got loose, that he was definitely out of the throttle. And at that point in the track, I definitely don't think the 9 of James Lorello was expecting the 48 truck to be out of the throttle. You can't really tell that he necessarily got into the apron. You can see that truck yaw out a little bit, but ultimately when he starts to get out of the throttle, it's really hard to then all of a sudden get on the brakes and slow down and avoid that. So, I mean, that's just kind of unfortunate for everyone involved. I think it's definitely more understandable now. It kind of looked like he just drove through him at first, but once we saw that happen, I think you can really understand why Lorello was really kind of caught out by that closing rate and was not anticipating it whatsoever, is because you really shouldn't at normal speed in the race without making a mistake, you shouldn't be out of the throttle at that point in the track. So it's got to be heartbreaking for those top 5 guys, as they had really separated themselves from the pack at that point, as we are now looking at our Brookstone Lucky Dog Award, that 28 truck of Jamar Dumas, I believe. There, Peter, am I correct in that?
Yeah, you absolutely are. He was the first truck 1 lap down when the caution flag did fly, so that Texaco Haviland number 28 machine now will be back on the lead lap, currently being scored in the 17th position. Of course, big thanks to our friends over at Brookstone Animal Hospital. If you're located in the Atlanta, Georgia area, make sure to go check them out for all of your animal hospital needs. But the pace car lights have turned off here. The iRacing.com Ford Mustang pace car. Lights extinguished. We're about to go back to green flag here in just a little bit. Ben Adams will be your leader for this restart. Probably wasn't expecting to be the race leader, when all of those leaders wrecked, though. He's now got himself up there. Now, let's talk about some of the drivers involved in that accident. Matt Cherry in the 48 machine still sitting on pit road. Chris Darling still sitting on pit road. Nathan Maurer on pit road. JT Poole, he's just taking his truck to the garage right now. James Lorello in the number 9 machine, he's still out there, Drew. We'll have to see what he can do. He's currently being scored 1 lap down. Definitely had to fix a lot of damage on that truck. We'll see whether or not he can bounce back. But definitely this racetrack is so aerodynamically sensitive, I seriously doubt we will see him contending for a race win. But I've said things out of my mouth before that don't hold true, especially from the commentary box. So we'll have to figure it out. But we're going to go back green here, Drew.
Really, you got to feel like this race is now wide open if you're one of those guys that wasn't quite in that top 5. But now we are back to green. Great restart for Ben Adams. At the 77 at Doug Neal started 29th up into second place. kind of struggled in that restart a little bit, but that the front of the pack kind of did not really go as a whole, and so it's going to be pretty spread out. And so even if you kind of struggled on that restart, I think you're going to be able to slot in that top 5 fairly easily. Also of note, TJ Buck kind of struggled, it felt like, a little bit early on in this race. He was so strong in the preseason race here at Texas Motor Speedways. We got a guy slow on the apron. Is that the 51 truck there, Peter?
Yeah, it is. It's Paul Bilson in that number 51 machine. And I'll tell you what, that number 51 machine of Paul Bilson, he was hoping to have a good night because, once again, we'll bring up those point standings. Comes into tonight 4th place in points, and it doesn't seem like he's got any power in that truck. Just seems like it's coasting on the inside of the racetrack. He's currently 1 lap down in 22nd, trying to limp back to pit row, but perhaps that engine has given up the ghost. As your race leaders flash on by there, you can see the 84 of TJ Buck is your race leader as of right now. Got up to the front. Doug Neal still sitting in 2nd. Ben Adams and Andrew Himmelman's running in 3rd and 4th. And Georgiana Himmelman will be excited to see her husband and her son. They're just on the podium and just outside the podium, respectively, as Doug Milliner says, "All right, Taylor, not so fast. I want to have some fun up here and get past your son and your husband." I'll tell you what, definitely going to be interesting to see how this last half of the race plays out. Christopher Darling in the chat says, "I swear I get wrecked anytime I'm quick, and nothing anyone can do about that one." Definitely kind of a bang-bang play. That's what they call it in football, Drew. And same thing happens out on the racetrack, except unfortunately when it's out there on the racetrack, the bang-bang happens so fast that you're in the outside wall.
Well, I certainly feel for Chris. He had a ton of speed tonight. He had a ton of speed at Richmond. And in both of those, just kind of situations unfolded that kind of put him in a position to where he got enough damage to where that was it. As we almost had a wreck going into turn 1. I believe that was the 4 of Andrew Himmelman in that 32 truck. Quite a bit of contact, and they were both able to save it and keep going. But they are really, really bottling up the rest of that pack. As now we're going to look at this replay. The teammates on the outside there. Yeah, a little bit of net code, I believe. That was a heck of a save by that 4 of Andrew Himmelman, Peter.
Yeah, we're going to have to get one more look at that one because that one is just a mega save. Peter Serta there in the 32 machine. Yeah, might have been a little bit of net code. And Himmelman was wheeling that sucker. Was able to get it wound back up. And good news is able to keep all 4 fenders on that Simbox truck, working his way now through turn number 3 and 4. He has slid back to the 10th position as of right now, right in front of Peter Serto, but back up at the front, things getting racy once again. TJ Buck on the outside of the 77 of Doug Neal. And how about the number 25 of Tim Hammond on the inside of TJ Buck, trying to get himself up into the fray here. Haven't seen Hammond up at the front here tonight, kind of flirting with the top 10, and now that the top 5 kind of extinguished themselves, this number 25 machine could be a truck to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially since that wreck happened, we have seen quite a few of these guys up front, including TJ Buck, Doug Milliner in the 6 truck, Ben Adams, and Doug Neal, our race leader currently, all started outside of the top 10, and Tim Hammond, who started in the top 10, the only one out of our top 5 started P9. So we've seen that previous caution really, really kind of turned the field on its head, and we've seen guys that we have not seen up front all night be up front, as now we are looking at our points leader, and Bill Edwards, who is down in 20th position. We talked about how well he had positioned himself early in this race. I don't exactly know what happened to Bill, but he is now a lap down in 20th position, and he's not even in a position to get the Lucky Dog Award. He is the 3rd car lap down after starting in our top 5. He's even behind the 2 of Justin White, who we saw get involved in some contact earlier and have quite a bit of right front damage. I don't think that 50 truck is really showing a ton. Maybe a little bit of right front there, Peter. I really can't tell. Yeah, that's a considerable amount of right front. I don't think we really caught what happened to Bill. Did you by chance see that, Pete?
No, I did not see what happened to Bill Edwards in that number 50 machine. But this is going to be a really interesting points night because now it kind of sets the stage where maybe the number 6 machine of Doug Milliner, as we once again will flash up the point standings, Doug Milliner comes into tonight 16 markers behind Bill Edwards. He's running up there near the front in the 6th position. It could be a night that Doug Milliner gets his name to the top of the standings here in the National Sim Racing Association Simbox Truck Series. But the number 14 of Jeff Price, he wants to say something about that as he's trying to go for the 6th spot right there in that yellow and blue number 14 machine, your winner from the Atlanta Motor Speedway. And Drew, we kind of pegged Price here to be fast based off of his run at Atlanta Motor Speedway, of course, going to victory lane there. And was it? Yeah, no. Was that Las Vegas? That was Las Vegas, wasn't it? The 14 machine went to victory lane. I'm getting everything mixed up. Lorello went to victory lane at Atlanta. But that number 14 machine knows how to get the job done. He's got a win under his name so far this year. And once again, moving towards the top 5 as this battle for the race lead between Neal and Hammond continues. Looks like Hammond's going to take the race lead for this lap. But next lap could be completely different as they continue to shuffle the race lead.
It's certainly been, again, like we talked about, almost restrictor plate track like in the cycling of these top guys. It seems so hard to really establish yourself in the race lead, especially early on in a run after a caution like this. Almost a little bit of a door check there between the 84 and the 77 truck. The 84, man, that Doug Neal is certainly aggressive through the apex of turns 3 and 4, really on the door of that 84 TJ Buck. We've seen that these trucks tend to kind of fade up a little bit through the center of the corners. Now, both JP Poole, Nathan Mauer, and Matt Cherry, all involved in that wreck up in the top 5, have all 3 disconnected. Essentially, the only guy that's really still out there and doing his thing is that 9 truck of James Lorello, but it's not like he's exactly on pace. He's 4 laps down back in 22nd. But to bring it back to our guys up front, Tim Hammond, who, again, the only guy in the top 5 to start in the top 10 in 9th, he is our leader, but TJ Buck is not letting him stay there for long as we just keep seeing the cycle of passes for the race lead.
And watch this. Joey Doucette in the number 61 machine here going through the quad oval. Oh, the 77 Emil came down. He just barely took the grass to avoid contact between himself and the number 77. Good heads-up driving by that number 61 machine as Hammond here continues to lead Buck in second, but you could really throw a blanket over the top 6 with Jeff Price there in that number 14 machine out back of that. Look at the 5 of Ben Adams. Is this 3 wide down the backstretch here, Drew? It looked like it might have been, but the 61 machine of Doucette thinks better of it and backs out. We're not even in the last half of the race yet. That's probably a wise move.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen what happens going into turn 3 wide. It typically is really not going to work out very well here in Texas. This certainly isn't Talladega. It certainly isn't Daytona. 2 wide is about the maximum that these guys are likely going to be able to do safely. And even then, sometimes stuff can happen. But yeah, I mean, this is a heck of a recovery by that 77 truck. A little aggressive, that kind of deal in the tri-oval. It reminded me of back when the COT was the car in iRacing. You'd have to let off in the tri-oval, and it ran through my head. What would have happened if these guys were racing the COT, where you had to lift through the tri-oval not to crash? It certainly is different times in iRacing where you were able to run that aggressively through the tri-oval at Texas. Because I remember the first time I jumped into that car, I couldn't not wreck the tri-oval in it. And it's now we're 3 wides through turn 3 and 4. Oh, that is a heck of a situation for Ben Adams in the middle and TJ Buck on the outside, but they were able to make it work there, which is honestly kind of surprising and absolute speaks to these guys' abilities to be able to control these trucks. As the 25 really washed up our leader through 1 and 2, and that is definitely going to allow that 61 truck of Joey Doucette to make a move for the lead and probably lead this lap.
Yeah, and look at this, Al back behind him. TJ Buck going to use the inside groove to go 3 wide down the backstretch. Looks like Ben Adams said, you know what, that's the second time in a lap I've been 3 wide. He just backs out of it wisely, knows that there's still a lot of racing left, but Joey Doucette will take the race lead in that number 61 machine. Jeff Price now trying to go for second. Tim Hammond trying to hold on for everything he can. After last lap he ran wide right there coming out of turn number 2, but Drew, just so tight racing here tonight. Again, you could throw a blanket over the top 5. Really, it's a train all the way back to the number 6 of Doug Milliner, who then has quite a bit of a gap back to the car behind him. That's Peter Serto in the number 32 machine. It's 1.6 seconds to that car in front, and to the 4 of Himmelman in front of him, just about a quarter of a second. So he's kind of the last truck kind of hanging on to this lead group. As there you saw the number 24 machine of Mashburn kind of duck down low. That sun-kissed number 24 machine, really good looking race truck as he gets down there on the apron. That's not what you want to have happen. He gets back up there on the racing surface as quick as possible, but that is going to give the number 4 of Andrew Himmelman a little bit of a run here through the quad oval. But now he's on the less preferred high groove in turn number 1 and 2. You can see that 4 truck, they're just kind of washed up the racetrack, continuing to wash up the racetrack. It gets really wide in turn number 1 and 2. Very easy to miss your apex. But again, a little bit of help from the number 6 down the backstretch. Looks like almost able to kind of push him on past the 24s. Mashburn again hits the apron through 3 and 4.
Yeah, and up front, the 14 of Jeff Price making a move on the 61 of Joey Doucette. I thought I saw that 61 kick sideways through 3 and 4 and had deja vu of kind of what we've been seeing all night with these leaders not able to basically not make contact with each other, but they were able to get through it. Just really close racing that last time by, as Jeff Price, our race winner earlier in the season, is now taking the race lead. He did so well at Las Vegas, with some kind of late race chaos, and this is not a dissimilar track, so we kind of saw the top guys take themselves out of contention, so it's definitely not a surprise to see that 14 truck up front.
Yeah, definitely Jeff Price here, very quick in that number 14 machine, trying to pick up his second win of the season. Trying to highlight some of the drivers involved in that accident a little while ago. One of them was James Lorello. He is currently being scored 4 laps down, 2 laps behind the next car in front of him, which is number 37 of Zach Howell. There is Howell running in the 21st spot. Bill Edwards, your points leader coming into tonight, 20th position. GJ Boydell in the number 014 machine. He's still out there on the racetrack as Peter Serto is down pit road in the number 32. This is a planned pit stop here, Drew. Just starting to look at some of the laps since last pit. Jeff Price, your race leader. Now we'll bring this up at the top of your screen. Jeff Price, your race leader. It's been 27 laps since he was last on pit road. Now 28 laps since he was last on pit road. But then you have a couple drivers like Michael Mooney there. He's got 30 laps on his tires. So we expect to see Mooney come down as we got the 4 machine and the 5. We're getting word they're both on pit road. There they are. So definitely this round of pit stops already started. A couple of drivers doing the undercut as we have just made it past the halfway mark.
Yeah, it's certainly, they're starting to spread out, and now we're seeing that 77 truck come down pit road and Doug Neal, as I don't think we really were expecting pit stops around this time, but certainly not surprising that maybe these guys are trying to get that Matt Cherry advantage, that short pitting strategy. It seems to work so well with these trucks, especially in this series, in the Simbox Truck Series here at NSRA. So, of course, our series sponsor sponsoring that 77 truck. So he is definitely going to try to take advantage of that short pit. As Jeff Price, not coming down this time by. We saw that, not necessarily work out at previous races where guys try to stay out. As Raymond Heilig, there in the 7 truck, is on pit road in the Gen Z TikTok scheme, I would say. Certainly aggressive. I like the colors. It's a really cool scheme. It's just interesting to see TikTok on a truck. So Raymond Heilig, there you go.
And you have to remember, Drew, tonight is the Ray Heilig presents the Ray Heilig 240. And that number 7 machine hasn't had exactly the night he was looking for so far. But we've seen that things haven't exactly panned out the way we expect them to here tonight. So definitely going to be interesting to see just how far Ray Heilig can get up through the field here tonight, at least considering he's presenting this race here at the Texas Motor Speedway. But starting to see a little bit of a mixed bag out there, Drew. We've seen a couple of cars down pit road already, and you can see that up at the top of the screen. TJ Buck back there in 13th. I think it's the first truck out on fresh tires. But then you have your race leaders here, Jeff Price, Joey Doucette. They haven't come down pit road yet, but as I say that, Doucette was kind of showing like he might come down pit road this time. Will he? Yeah, we're about to find out. Yes, he will. That was a kind of a late lunge down pit road. Jeff Price coming down with him in the number 14 machine. So now your leaders come down. They made it 33 laps since they were last on pit road. So that's pretty good for both of them here, Drew. And that, you know, with now just about 71 laps to go, we're starting to think that they can't make it on just one more stop from here. They're going to have to pit at least twice, but it's going to be really tight for that last pit stop. It's just going to be a splash of fuel because they can make it 66 laps easily from here, and that would be with only 5 laps to go. So going to be interesting to see how it all pans out, and maybe some of these drivers realized that and said, well, you know what, if I go to the very last lap of fuel, I'm going to get into that awkward spot where if I pit one more time, I'm still going to have to pit, and there'll be, you know, this 5-lap window. Why don't I maximize the number of laps? But as I say that, that's going to be all thrown to the window because caution flag is out here. And now we have to figure out why this caution flag came out. And I think we might have found it. I think it's right here, the number 35 machine of Aaron Mack, high up on the racetrack. Does he just get loose? Yes, he does. And Drew is gonna keep it off the wall. So that's the good news for Aaron Mack, right in front of the number 2 machine. But that will bring out the caution here at the Texas Motor Speedway. And let's see if we can go on board with the number 2 machine, because that was really, 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 really close here for Justin White.
Certainly was, yeah. I mean, all he had to do was not kind of overreact to the car spinning in front. And sometimes that's a smart thing to do, is just to kind of back it down and kind of wait for that car to kind of end up going wherever it's going to go, and then just kind of, you know, pick your lane and go for it. And ultimately, if he would have done a drastic evasive maneuver, he probably would have hit the 35 truck, but he just kind of kept calm and just kind of held his line and waited for that truck to kind of go where it was going to go, and he turned out just fine. And you know, oftentimes it's just what you need to do. You don't need to make a drastic maneuver and have the save of the year. Sometimes you just got to be a little patient and kind of wait for that wreck to kind of clear itself, and then you'll be good to go. But I don't think that this caution really trapped anybody a lap down. I think pretty much everybody who was up towards the front had either made their pit stop or was in the process of it, and it's pretty much going to kind of cycle around to whoever short pitted is going to have a little bit of an advantage. But it's going to be interesting. Do you come down pit road here, Peter? Because if you short pit, you probably have 5 laps on your tires, which certainly is enough to make a difference to where those guys that maybe stayed out a little bit longer and just pitted are going to be quite a bit quicker than you, and they're going to be restarting right behind you. Would you pit if you were one of those guys that short pit, Peter?
So this is where it gets interesting, Drew. Right now, we have 69 laps to go. We've seen that these drivers can make it 33 laps. I think some of them even stretched it 34 laps under that long green flag run that we had earlier. So we know with ease these drivers can go 66 laps on fuel. Are any of these drivers thinking about possibly saving fuel to make it to the end on only one more pit stop? I think what we're going to see is some drivers, like Doug Milliner right here in the number 6 machine, I think he's thinking about that. And I think he's going to come down pit road, he's going to top off, get as much fuel in that Ford F-150 as he can, and the possible chance of him going to the end from here. Because when we go green, we're probably only going to have about 67 laps to go. It's not out of the realm of possibility. That's kind of what I'm trying to say. Other cars coming down pit road as well. Trying to see if we can figure out who the lucky dog was, and it is the number 2 machine right there, Justin White, your Brookstone Animal Hospital Lucky Dog Award winner under this caution. Not the best view of him right there. There we go. That's a little bit better. Picking up the Lucky Dog Award. Back on the lead lap, we'll have 16 trucks on the lead lap when we go back to Green Flag Racing here shortly. But Drew could be setting us up for a very interesting strategy-filled finish of this race if we go caution-free from here. Cross fingers, knock on wood, hope we do. But in the chat, Mitchell Adams joining us, saying, how's it going? I'll tell you what, Mitchell, it's been a pretty good night. Really interesting night here, Drew, with the leaders, not just on one occasion, but on multiple occasions here tonight. Your leaders have wrecked.
It's certainly, we saw 1, 2, and 3 wreck early, and then later in the race we saw 1 through 5 wreck. So basically your top 8 guys at certain points in the race have taken themselves or have been taken out by wrecks around them. And so it's kind of wide open for the rest of the field to try to take advantage of that. So it certainly has not been a boring, predictable Mercedes-dominated F1 race, as we've seen so much in F1 this year. Not always, but there's certainly been interesting races in F1. But Mercedes clearly have been so dominant. That's not going to be the case here at Texas. And I agree with this pit strategy thing that you're talking about. I think Doug Milner is in a really interesting position. He might just need a splash on pit road. He might have a 10-second shorter stop. Even if he has to stop, he still might be at such an advantage with not having to take a significant amount of fuel compared to the rest of the field, that he might be at quite a bit of an advantage where if he doesn't take tires, it's still going to be incredibly difficult to catch him because we're only going to have 65-ish, 66 laps to go here on this restart.
Yeah, definitely going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. Again, the National Sim Racing Association giving us a lot of talking points for the checkered flag here tonight. And of course, the Ray Heilig presents the Ray Heilig 240. Where is Ray Heilig right now in that machine that is so sporty around this place? Trying to see where he's going to line up. Well, folks, how about that? Up in the 6th position, outside row number 3 for this restart in that TikTok number 7 machine. Why don't we jump on board and ride with him for this restart, Drew?
Absolutely, as the 14 truck of Jeff Price will lead them on the restart. Great restart for the inside line, but the 7 of Ray Heilig, the presenter of the Ray Heilig Presents the Ray Heilig 240 here at Texas Motor Speedway. Not too bad of a restart for him, as I love that cyan-colored roll cage. I'm always a sucker for a painted roll cage. It's always a really cool detail to throw in there. And you're certainly not going to miss that one of the 7 truck of Ray Heilig. As now we are on board here kind of towards the middle of the pack with Raymond. Stuck on the outside as we saw the 28 of Jamar Dumas and the 5 of Ben Adams, as well as the 15 truck of Robert Dudley, be able to get by him as he's kind of stuck here on the outside. It's just a tricky position because you can really kind of get up in the marble just a little bit and really cost yourself several positions over the span of a few laps because it takes a little bit to clean those tires off. We certainly saw him high through 3 and 4 that last time by. He's trying to cut that thing down as now we are, he just got into the wall. Raymond Heilig into the wall through 3 and 4. But back up front, the 24 has taken the lead as now we are back on board with Ray Heilig as now we're going to go to a replay to see just what happened here.
Yeah, coming off into turn number 3. Was there a little bit of net code? Ooh, oh yeah, there was definitely net code between him
and... a huge wreck on the backstretch.
Oh, that's not good. Let's see if we can check out the backstretch and see what happened back there. All right, let's see if we can dial this up. And here comes the field. What happens here? Ooh, that's one car. Is that Michael Mooney in the outside wall? I think it was. Was that what triggered this accident? Now, we didn't really capture it. Maybe we went back a little bit too far here. Let's see if we can figure out what all went down, folks, here on this replay. As we're coming out of the corner. Ooh, yep. And, well, it was the number 88 machine smacking the outside wall. He must have done it 2 laps in a row, thrown up in front of the field. Oh, Peter Surto just got launched. And look at Ray Heilig in the number 7 machine doing a little bit of slaloms. Ow. That was painful there, Drew.
I think Peter Serto is now in orbit around Earth because he certainly got launched on that one. That's one of those weird iRacing physics deals, as I believe we are on board with him now. As there's not really much to see, and then boom, 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 and then he is gone. Oh, he comes back down. He does come back down, so that's nice. He didn't get reset, but I don't think that truck is likely operational anymore, as he is probably going to be done for the night in that 32 truck. That is certainly not something I was expecting, even with that dramatic of a hit by that 88 truck, to see a guy get launched like that here at Texas Motor Speedway. Yet just into the outside wall, then hard into the inside wall, which shoots him back across the track. And then Peter Serto, good Lord, it doesn't get better when you watch it for like a third or fourth time. Heck of a maneuvering by Ray Heilig, the presenting sponsor of tonight's race. NASCAR needs to consult these guys for their new chicanes at these Roval tracks, because he certainly performed a masterful chicane maneuver to get around these wrecked trucks.
You know what I'm thinking there, Drew? And I'm watching this again from the front of the 88 machine. The 28 in front of him washed up the racetrack, and I wonder if he just got a piece of dirty air. Let's see if we can one more look at this. Watch this. 28 kind of washed up the racetrack, and it almost pushes the 88 machine to the outside wall just a little bit. And that might have been what did it. Just that dirty air, and all of a sudden Michael Moody and that 88 machine completely toast. Unfortunately, you see him sitting on pit road right there in front of the number 32 of Peter Serto. Tough break for Peter Serto. I know he had Kelsey Jalowski in the chat here tonight rooting him on. Looks like his race will go no further. Meanwhile, we have had a lot of takers on pit road, but we haven't had a couple of trucks stay out there here in the Simbox Truck Series. 5th place on back. Tim Hammond in the number 25 machine. In fact, excuse me, that's 4th place on back. Came down pit road. So again, we'll bring up Lapson's pit up at the top of the screen. You see Mashburn, Dumas, Milner, as well as those three, all elected to stay out. And then you have a bunch of trucks coming down pit road. So it's going to be interesting to see how that all sorts out here in just a little bit. Trying to see who our Lucky Dog Award winner is under this caution. But in fact, I'm not seeing a Lucky Dog Award winner just yet. So we'll have to see if we can figure that out when we go back to green. But definitely going to be an interesting one. Drew, we now know that they can make it from here on one more pit stop. So I'm surprised these front trucks haven't come down pit road to at least top off with fuel. They might not need fresh tires, but just top off with fuel.
Yeah, I wonder if they're banking on additional cautions, right? We've kind of seen a rash of cautions recently, and so it wouldn't kind of be surprising if they're expecting that, but that's such a dangerous assumption. Just because there was a caution right after another caution doesn't mean that there will be, and this certainly can cost you the race by not pitting. But I don't think we've really seen Ben Mashburn and kind of the rest of these guys up here. Ben Mashburn started P19. Jamar Dumas started P14. Doug Milner started P28. We really haven't seen these top three up at the front, and they just might view this as an opportunity to where even if there's a caution in 10 laps, everyone's going to have to come down pit road for tires. So maybe they're just viewing this as a possible opportunity to gain some track position and compete for this win. I don't think it's really going to cost them a ton because these guys weren't really running up front prior to this. So why not kind of roll the dice at this point and see what happens?
Yeah, definitely going to be interesting. There's Ray Heilig in that number 7 machine. He did come down pit road. Quite a bit of damage on that truck, but definitely going to be keeping an eye on Ray Heilig here over the closing laps. How about the number 13 machine here tonight, Drew? Jordan Scheffler was your pole sitter involved in that accident on lap number 1, currently running back there in the 12th position. How about that after all things considered? A strong recovery for him. Definitely sticking it out here, trying to get as strong of a finish as possible as the iRacing Ford Mustang pace car lights have turned off. And we're going to get set to go back green here. Just under 60 laps to go. In fact, it will be 59 laps to go when we cross the stripe here in just a second, Drew. Green flag, green flag.
Yeah, and great restart there by Ben Mashburn in that 24 truck. able to really take the lead and gain quite a bit of an advantage over the rest of the field, especially to Marty Moss who restarted P2. Doug Milner now up there in that 6 truck. I love the old school numbers in that 6. That's really cool. The old Mark Martin kind of Valvoline Roush numbers. Really neat to see. Always appreciate that stuff. As it seems like GJ Boydell's going to be hitting in this time. It seems to be a little odd, but do what you got to do. As the 6 truck really closing in down the front stretch, will he be making a move into turn 1? Not quite. Yeah, he is. He's going to cut it to the bottom, but not quite there. As the 5 really washed up the track there of Ben Adams, and that's going to cost him quite a few spots down the backstretch. It really compromised his momentum. But I mean, other than that, not too eventful up there. Andrew Himmelman. A nice recovery as we kind of saw him fall back throughout kind of earlier in the race, maybe not towards the back of the pack, but certainly not up front, as now he is up to P3 and is certainly going to be challenging these guys who did not pit for the race lead here before too long.
Yeah, that number 4 truck definitely having a strong showing here tonight. Had a strong showing last week in the Mike Himmelman Memorial race that we had at Richmond. Now Andrew going for that 2nd spot, trying to use that high groove. I said that high groove wasn't preferred, but we saw him make a move earlier. I think it actually might have been on that number 6 of Milner, using all that momentum that you get from the longer way around the racetrack. So Himmelman here trying some different moves. He's under fire now from the 25 of Tim Hammond. Still a long way here to go tonight, Drew. So a lot of these trucks just going to try and find themselves in the right position. But look at Jeff Price in that number 14 machine. He's not out of this thing. He's there back inside the top 5 in that bright yellow and blue and black machine. Can't miss it as almost contact there through the center of the quad. Ben Ashburn and the 25 Hammond getting close to one another. These trucks, laps are winding down. They're just going to get more and more racing as Milner takes the 6 to the front.
Yeah, these guys certainly are not shying away from hard racing here on lap 106 of 160, but there is still quite a bit of race to go. It's 2 by 2 by 2 by 2. Are we at Daytona? Are we at Talladega? No, we're at Texas Motor Speedway, and not just any Texas Motor Speedway, but the reconfigured Texas Motor Speedway. I don't think either of us, Peter, were really anticipating this level of racing. Not like on the lap of a restart. This is several laps after a restart, and we're still seeing just side-by-side racing throughout the top 10 as that 25 truck of Tim Hammond, a pretty solid position for him, is that 14 of Jeff Price just able to clear that 6 truck of Doug Milner as he is side-by-side with Andrew Himmelman for 3rd. I got to imagine that 4 truck's going to have the advantage. But 25, I mean, not a big lead, certainly by any means, but several truck lengths, which is more than what we've really been able to see from anybody here on a restart, as now we see Jeff Price really close down on that backstretch. Man, the draft effect has been so strong here tonight, which honestly I was not really expecting, considering the challenge that 1 and 2 presents, and that you want as much grip as possible, including aero grip, as Jeff Price is going to make a move for the lead.
Yeah, that number 14 machine is fast. We've seen it a couple of times early this season in the Simbox Truck Series. He's going to take the race lead. I just had a minute ago the race summary pulled up and on the inside of the screen, and the most shocking number to me, Drew, as you were talking about how this racetrack has seemed to be like a super speedway and how it's raced here tonight, we've had almost 25 lead changes. I think with Jeff Price just taking lead, that's number 24 here tonight. But yeah, think about that, 160 lap race. We're only 110 laps in. We've had on the cusp of 25 lead changes. Again, that's about 1 lead change every 5 laps, folks. That is absolutely nuts for a 1.5 mile racetrack. You don't see that anywhere. Very surprising to see that here tonight. And of course, one of those drivers who's led quite a few laps here tonight. In fact, we're going to bring up the laps led at the top of the screen. The number 48 machine of Matt Cherry didn't lead a whole lot of laps here tonight, but that number 48 machine, once again, bad luck. Strikes. He's not going to come away with a strong finish. We saw it at Richmond. We saw it at Atlanta. We see it again here tonight. What is Matt Cherry thinking he needs to do to get a strong result?
I mean, yeah, right. Like, I mean, I quite frankly have never ran as well as Matt Cherry has. The first, I mean, basically 4 out of 5 races. He was so quick here. He was quick at Richmond. He was quick at Las Vegas. He was quick at Atlanta. Daytona's kind of a different animal. But at the non-restrictor plate tracks, he has been so exceptionally fast that I can absolutely imagine him being incredibly frustrated, just like Chris Darling has been, right? Chris Darling had the dominant truck at Richmond, and he was so quick here tonight that both of those guys have to be thinking, what do I have to do to not be involved in a wreck that takes me out of this thing? Especially when you compare that to the luck of like the 14 truck of Jeff Price, right? Who's kind of been able to capitalize on this misfortune and who is running in P3 as, man, we are looking at some aggressive racing by that 77 of Doug Neal back around the mid-teens, maybe 15th, 16th position. It's kind of hard to keep track as Doug Neal crosses the line in P16. Andrew Himmelman's kind of fallen back. Oh no, we're looking a little bit further towards the front. Yeah, I think Andrew Himmelman's fallen back a little bit. He crossed the line P6 that last time by, and now Doug Neal, who was a little bit further back there, is going to be on his inside maybe, or maybe Doug Neal's had a great lap. It's kind of hard to tell. Things have changed so quick here in the Simbox Truck Series from lap to lap, is now they are lapping the 61 truck of Joey Doucette, how fortunes have changed for him.
Yeah, that number 61 machine is off the pace, unfortunately. He's currently being scored in the 13th position. You see all the trucks scattering around them, including the number 51 machine of Paul Bilson. Remember, Bilson comes into tonight up near the top in points, but we got word. We saw him without power crew there just before the halfway mark, getting word that he had the money shift, is what I like to call it. Tried to shift up to fourth here from third. It slipped out of the H pattern into second. Kablamo went the motor. The team went to work. They've been able to put a new engine in that number 51 machine, and now Paul Bilson back out there on the racetrack. The bad news is he's 49 laps down, and with only 45 laps to go, not too many positions that he will be able to pick up. He will presumably be able to get up to around the 21st position, as I'm hearing the number 7 of Ray Heilig has potentially had some issues. And of course, in the Ray Heilig 240 presented by Ray Heilig, that's not what you want to see happen. Now, trying to see if I can figure out what happened to that number 7 truck. See if something happened to him, or if it was just a matter of he pulled off the racetrack or something. But here he was a couple laps ago coming off pit road. So it seems like maybe a couple of pit stops all in a row for that number 7 machine, maybe having some technical issues or something. But definitely Ray Heilig not having the best of luck here tonight in the race that holds his likeness. Is back up the front now. Ben Adams has got that number 5 truck to the race lead. And speaking of 20s, that was lead change number 27 here, folks, tonight. So that number continues to keep skyrocketing. Very, very impressive. JT Buck in second. And remember who won that preseason race that we had here at the Texas Motor Speedway, Drew? That number 84, TJ Buck. Here again, having a strong run tonight.
Yeah, I noticed TJ had quite a bit of little bit of rear damage earlier in this race. It seems like he's gotten that mostly fixed. I wonder if that was holding him back a little bit, because he definitely displayed such incredible pace here in that preseason race that I was definitely expecting him to be out front here relative to the field, because I mean most everybody who was running in this race ran in that race, and TJ was so massively quick that I was kind of surprised that he wasn't up there mixing it up with the leaders earlier on. But their misfortune has turned into his good fortune, as he is running in P3 trying to hold off that 25 truck to his inside. But I got to argue about Ray Heilig's misfortune, because no matter how his race turns out, that his sponsor logo for the Ray Heilig presents the Ray Heilig 240, you can't have a bad race when that's the race logo and it's you with, I believe that is a corgi. I might be mistaken. I am certainly not a dog expert, but you can't have a bad race when that is the presenting sponsor. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. A little bit of his pupper, his doggo, if you will, right there on that. And, definitely doesn't seem like it's going to be the night he was looking for. He's still out there running. He was able to get back out there on the racetrack in that number 7 machine, but being scored 6 laps down in the 20th position. Meanwhile, back in the front, Ben Adams continues to lead. Jeff Price is in second. Now, the truck that you see in between Ben Adams and the 14, that's Paul Bilson. We highlighted his woes just a little bit ago. TJ Buck now back to third, right in front of Andrew Himmelman, who's made a charge once again. Drew, we saw him back to sixth. Now he's back up to fourth. These positions just completely yo-yoing around this racetrack, as we're seeing something a little bit interesting out of the number 51 machine. Granted, he's many laps down, plus a couple more minis, but he's kind of running a unique line through turn number 1 and 2, and it seems like he's actually making it work. Let's see if we can go on board here with the number 51 machine. We've seen it a couple times tonight, out of some drivers able to make this higher group work. But look at him, he's just kind of backing out of it, getting that high line right above that seam that's up there. And look at this run he's going to get here on Ben Adams. Now, some people might be thinking, oh, well, there is probably a tire difference between these two cars. And your answer would be yes, there is. The 51 machine has about 10 lap fresher tires than the 5 in front of him. But nonetheless, I mean, he's trying all he can to get one of his laps back. Granted, he is currently 49 laps down, so definitely not going to be in any type of contention to win here tonight. But fun to see a truck trying a little bit higher groove out there on the racetrack.
Certainly, and speaking of fresher tires, we are on lap 125 of 160. I am anticipating some guys trying to come in around 130 or so. I think they can make it from that distance. We've seen them run that amount of laps before, and we certainly know that everyone is likely, I mean, not likely, I think it's almost an absolute certainty that every one of these guys competing for the race win that's on the lead lap is going to have to pit. I mean, basically the entirety of our top 10, with your top 12 being on the lead lap currently. I think they're all going to have to pit, and I mean, I certainly would be exploring that. Now, I am definitely one to explore alternative strategies, because rarely do I have the pace to win races, so I got to figure out other ways to do it. So I would certainly, if I were definitely in the latter half of the top 10, if I were Jamar Dumas, if I were Colin Ullery, towards the tail end of the top 10, I would, in the next 3 laps, certainly be exploring coming in and trying to jump these guys, right? They have fallen off a second and a half compared to their quick lap times right after a green flag. So, I mean, if you hit 3 laps earlier, that is 4.5 seconds that you've gained on these leaders, and that is enough to throw everyone like 8th and up into the lead. So I think it's going to be interesting to see in the next few laps who decides to pit, who decides to stay out, because that could definitely throw a wrench in what has kind of stabilized as far as our top 5 is concerned. We've really seen these guys start to kind of, separate themselves a little bit compared to what we've seen in this last green flag run.
Yeah, and now with just 33 laps to go, pit window is without a doubt open. I mean, this is the point where I do expect to see people coming down pit road, like you said, because they know that they can make it from here. As you can see up at the top of the screen, these drivers could technically go probably about 3 or 4 more laps on fuel, at least some of the ones up the front, like Ben Adams, who has 30 laps since he was last on pit road. But now that the window's open, I wouldn't be at all surprised if what you say is correct, Drew. Some of these drivers will just be itching to get onto pit road. I'm just surprised we haven't seen anyone come down yet. But as I say that, the number 28 machine looks like he's going to be the first taker on pit road, and he is going to roll off in that truck. There he goes, back out onto the racetrack. So I misspoke just a little bit. We have had one taker. It's the 28 machine. So back up at the front, looks like the number 14 machine there, Jeff Price. Drew having connection issues. In fact, he's going to wheel it down onto pit road here, right in front of a couple of others. That's Tim Hammond in the 25 coming down. Buck in the 84, 77 of Doug Neal. Now, I don't know what happened to Doug Neal here tonight, Drew, in that 77 Simbox machine. Remember, he was racing up near the front around the halfway mark. Maybe he had a pit road speeding penalty or something, but definitely that 77 truck is a couple laps down, not having the night he was hoping for sure, at the Texas Motor Speedway. So we'll see if more people come down. Yes, your race leader's coming down. The 5, the 4, and the 2. Was that contact between the 4 and the 2? It surely looked like it. Let's see if we can see if there was indeed contact between those two trucks here. Just a brief moment coming down onto pit road, because that could be important for the finish. And, oh, yes. Well, there might have been net code there, Drew. That was really tight. It's hard to tell from even the blimp cam.
I certainly would feel fortunate to not be turned around if I was one of those two trucks that made contact coming on the pit road. Rarely does that not result in a spin. You're already on the threshold of grip, trying to keep that thing under control. I can't believe that I actually correctly predicted a green flag pit stop. I don't think I've ever done that before. No, like every other time I've been wrong. So it's pretty cool that I was able to kind of anticipate what these guys were going to do, especially Jamar Dumas in that 28 truck. I was literally like that position, not to toot my own horn, but you got to when you're right sometimes, right? But I was like, if I were Jamar Dumas in that position, I would be pitting, and that's exactly what he did. Unfortunately for him, I think some of the guys in front of him also pitted, which gained him a little bit of an advantage. But this is really advantaged Jeff Price, who is now quite a bit, has quite a bit of a gap, rather, out front. He's got 1.8 to Jamar Dumas in that 28 truck, almost 2 seconds to TJ Buck, and then 6 seconds darn near to Andrew Himmelman in that 4 truck.
Yeah, and what's really surprising is that number 14 of Price, he didn't do much of an undercut. As these numbers at the top of the screen kind of cycle through, you'll see that he has 2 lap fresher tires than Dumas in the number 28 machine, but in comparison to Buck, same lap old tires. They pitted at the same time. He has 1 lap older tires than Andrew Himmelman, Robert Dudley, Justin White in the number 2 machine, but he also pitted on the same lap as Tim Hammond in the number 25 machine, and we've seen that number 25 machine be fast, and he's 5.9 seconds behind the number 14. So Jeff Price here up at the front, Drew, he's gotten a little bit of an advantage over TJ Buck right now. He really just has to manage that gap back to that number 84 machine, maybe save a little bit of tires, because as you and I know, that's most likely, assuming this race goes caution-free from here, the last pit stop off the night. So saving tires might pay dividends here. Just manage that gap back to the truck behind you, especially if that truck behind you has a draft. And it seems like Buck is catching him here just a little bit, as it's down to about 0.7 of a second. Not 100% sure if that's due to draft or if that's due to Jeff Price saving tires. But as a race leader, I'm definitely one of those drivers thinking about saving a little bit of tires and managing that gap back, especially when, you're not going to be back on pit road again here this race.
I am certainly not known for my abilities to save tires. I tend to, once I'm out front, to just push as hard as I can and then figure out the rest later, which doesn't really work out that often. I definitely lost a league race this Wednesday with 2 to go after leading like 68 out of 75 laps, because I promptly burned up my tires. So as TJ Buck here, now disregarding my personal experiences, is making a move for the lead. But yeah, I think it seems like Jeff Price could certainly have more pace than what he is having right now, and he has demonstrated more pace than what he has right now. I wonder what his strategy is and how he is driving that number 14 truck, because it certainly seems like he is saving stuff, but we do know that the draft is so strong with these trucks that it's not terribly surprising that TJ Buck was really able to chase him down here from, a second and a half, 2 seconds back. Now, can these guys kind of work with each other to not lose more time to Jamar Dumas in that 28 truck, to Andrew Himmelman, who has been incredibly quick, has cut a almost 6-second deficit to the leader down to 3.9 in the past few laps. Tim Hammond, Robert Dudley, Justin White, They've all been pretty quick. I think that realistically, Andrew Himmelman's in a really good position. Tim Hammond's in a good position. I think outside of that, Robert Dudley's kind of iffy to possibly run down these guys with 20 laps to go. That's not a ton of time. So I think it's going to be between essentially our top 5 and up. But even then, I mean, Andrew Himmelman, 3.8 seconds, 20 laps to go. I mean, you can be a few tenths a lap quicker every lap, and that's not enough. He's really going to have to push hard these last few laps. But he has certainly displayed the pace recently. But you got to keep that up. You can't plateau that difference in speed, as now he's been able to overtake Jamar Dumas, and now he's up to P3, 3.5 seconds behind our top 2 in TJ Buck and Jeff Price.
Yeah, good pace here out of the 4 of Andrew Himmelman. However, his teammate, Ben Adams, give that man a penalty on pit road this last time. Too fast onto pit road for that number 5 machine. He had to serve a lengthy penalty. He now finds himself 1 lap down, folks, trying to catch, he was trying to catch up to one of the other cars who was also 1 lap down to get into the Lucky Dog spot. He now finds himself in that Lucky Dog position. Also, Doug Milliner in the number 6 machine. He's had issues in that truck. Remember, he was contending, Drew, not too long ago. He's just now coming off of pit road in the King of the Hill scheme here. So I hadn't seen that all night long. How did I not see that the number 6 of Doug Milliner was running a Strickland propane scheme? I'm beside myself that I didn't notice that. That's a really cool King of the Hill reference, of course. Reference to Arlen, Texas, which doesn't actually exist, but is kind of a mock of a suburb of Dallas, kind of the Allen, Plano area, just on the north side of Dallas. But I'll tell you what, definitely not what that number 6 machine was looking for, because he himself was looking to finish strong here, Drew, because of that points battle. That seemed like he was going to pick up quite a few points on your points leader here tonight, but now doesn't look like it'll be as many.
We got to say the Strickland propane and propane accessories has to be one of my favorite schemes on that number 6 truck. I'm always a sucker for one of those kind of cool, fictional, TV series schemes. It's really neat that 6 truck's running that. But now we're seeing Jeff Price be able to challenge TJ Buck here, and you know what? This is exactly what that 4 of Andrew Himmelman wants to see. Is we have a truck still on the apron. Who is that, Peter?
That is the number 61 of Joey Doucette. Remember, he was strong at one point in the race, but it seemed like he has lost power in that truck. Now back up at the front, Jeff Price just took the race lead, but a caution flag has come out for that slow number 61 machine, so that is going to throw a wrench in everything here tonight. Nicholas Rees joining us in the chat saying, hello, how's it going, Nicholas? Hope you are doing well. Of course, one of the commentators that has graced the airs here on 3Wide TV in the past. Hopefully, you can get a new microphone. You can jump back and booth with us at some point there, Nicholas. Tana Himmelman asking, is it 21 to go now? Well, I'm not 100% sure because it is 14 to go now. Of course, I probably am way late on your message, so maybe a quick refresh of the YouTube stream will help that. As the pace car lights are on, and Drew, if any of these drivers have any sets of tires left, I think they're going to use them right here.
Yeah, I believe, according to my race information page, there is no limit on tires in this race. I think normally they're limited to 7. I don't know if they decided to change that for this race or not. I don't think it would honestly have much of an effect. I got to say, I think this is exactly what Andrew Himmelman didn't want to see. He was 2.2 seconds that last time by with 14 laps to go. And I think he certainly wanted this to go green because I think he was in a heck of a position to capitalize on this. But it is going to be a full-on sprint. I would be shocked if the top 9 are on the lead lap. I can't imagine that they're not all going to take 4 tires. I think if you take 2 tires or obviously no tires, you are at such a pace deficit to everyone else who takes 4. I would absolutely expect them to take 4 tires as we are looking at our Brookstone Animal Hospital Lucky Dog Award. The number 5 of Ben Adams, Andrew Himmelman's teammate, who I think was in a great position. He is going to be back on the lead lap, and we have seen how quick Ben Adams was. I got to say, he's going to crush tires as well. I know he's going to be starting EOL, but we still have quite a few laps left. I think Ben Adams, I think it would be a mistake to say that he doesn't have the ability to win this race, Peter.
Yeah, and with all the craziness we've seen here tonight, I mean, we've seen instances where your race leaders have wrecked each other not once, but twice. We saw it on lap number 1, and then we saw it there right around halfway when the top 5 cars all jumped up on the backstretch. Could we see something similar here? With how many lead changes we've seen here tonight, it's a little bit of a lottery. Kind of feels like the final 10 laps of the super speedway typically. We've been mentioning that all night long, but here with this shootout, I think a lot of these trucks with the group, we highlighted a little bit earlier, the weather conditions here. Just 65 degrees air temperature, track even cooling off. It's cooler than it was earlier tonight when we brought up that weather graphic. They're going to have just that much more grip. I think it's almost going to be flat out to the end. We're going to see the draft in full effect. It's going to be an interesting one, folks. Make sure you stay tuned for this finish, because I honestly can't tell you who's going to walk away with the checkered flag here tonight. It's going to be tight. And all these drivers up the front, they're going to have to do everything they can to try their darndest to get to victory lane. A couple of other things to follow up on. Looks like the 50 of Bill Edwards is going to take the wave around. Same thing with Doug Mulliner. So it looks like those cars will get back on the lead lap. Ben Adams on pit road right now, so he's going to come down and get 4 fresh tires after receiving that Brookstone Lucky Dog Award winner here under this caution. He's going to roll off, like he said, end of longest line. A couple of other trucks up there taking the wave around as well. And folks, we don't often highlight battles for position further back in the pack, but Paul Bilson and Chris Darling, they are very, very close to one another. Darling in the number 47 machine is ironically 47 laps down. Paul Bilson in the 51 machine, he is 48 laps down. Now he's going to have to get one of those laps back here in the closing laps, and it looks like that's not going to happen, because it looks like he's going to come down pit road here and not get that wave around. I was just going to say, Bilson's trying to do all he can to get around Chris Darling in the number 47 machine. They're both still running out there on the racetrack. I don't think that's going to happen anymore. But the pace car lights are going to turn off, so we're going to have what appears here to be a 10-lap shootout at the Texas Motor Speedway. Drew, 15 miles to figure out who's going to win. Tonight's Ray Heilig presents the Ray Heilig 240 at Texas Motor Speedway. One answer is it won't be that man right there. Just so happens to be Ray Heilig in that TikTok number 7 machine. He's fallen down a couple more laps. I'd be curious to know what's happened here tonight to that number 7 machine. Definitely over the last half of the race, he's fallen 8 laps down. Not what he wanted to have happen, but Drew, I hate to say this because commentator's curse is a real thing, but who's your pick here for the final 10 lap?
It's really hard to judge based on essentially a clean slate of tires, essentially. But I really, really liked the pace that we saw from that Ford truck of Andrew Himmelman in that last run. He doesn't have the tire advantage that he had, but he is in P4, and he has displayed quite a bit of pace late in this race. And amongst the guys that are essentially able to win this, I got to say, he and TJ Buck, and Jeff Price, who has already won this year, I think it's going to be amongst those 3 that we're going to see the guy that goes to victory lane.
Absolutely. The pace car headed down pit road, hopefully for the final time here tonight. Green flag in the flagman's hand, and we're back to green flag action here at Texas Motor Speedway. 10 more laps to go. Great restart for the number 14 machine. TJ Buck in the number 84 going to slide down in front of Andrew Himmelman. Himmelman had that great run at Richmond, backing that up with a strong run here tonight at Texas. They go single file for now, Drew, but as soon as that draft gets wound up here, I expect to see them all accordioning together as your race leader, Jeff Price, still having connection issues.
Yeah, I think the good news for Jeff Price is he's having like warp problems where he's all over the track, at least from my vantage point, but he certainly is disappearing, which is unnerving as a competitor who is racing in his vicinity. You definitely don't want to reappear with him inside of your truck, and suddenly you guys are both crashing, because that's how iRacing works. But Jeff Price here now falling back. I believe he's probably very, very high in 3 and 4. That is not going to be great for the pickup on his tires, as he is likely going to fall back to 5th position, as Andrew Himmelman and TJ Buck, followed by the 25 of Tim Hammond, are really, I think, the guys that are in a great position here with 8 laps to go, as we are on lap 153. TJ Buck, so strong here in the preseason race, now leading with under 10 to go, throws a heck of a block on Andrew Himmelman there going into turn 3. That Ford has been so quick in the later portions of this race that I would not be surprised if he throws a move on TJ Buck going into turn 1.
Yeah, look at him just kind of showing a nose off into turn number 1. He backs out of it though. TJ Buck continues to lead Andrew Himmelman. Let's see if we can bring up just one more time, folks. Race summary down there. 32 lead changes here tonight. Just 7 laps to go. Will we see a 33rd? Will we see a 34th? The number 4 machine is trying to do it here around the high side. He's going to get to the outside of that number 84 machine here through the tri-oval. They're nice and tight. They're going through the second kink of the quad oval. And still, the 84 machine leads. And remember, Drew, he went to victory lane here in the preseason race that we covered here on 3Y TV, so he knows how to get the job done here at the Texas Motor Speedway. We're coming to 5 to go.
Yeah, that definitely didn't work out as poorly as it could have for Andrew Himmelman, as he didn't lose a spot, but he didn't gain a spot. I just think 1 and 2, it's so hard to make the high lane work. It doesn't have the banking that you can really lean on through 3 and 4 on that high lane, where it's going to kind of provide almost an advantage to that outside truck, but he was able to slot back down in P2 a little high through 1 and 2. I think he's just really trying to figure out a way to get by that 84, as that 84 gives a little bit of a draft to the 25 truck, showing his nose to Andrew Himmelman through 3 and 4. I think Himmelman's going to have the run off of 3 and 4 if he's able to kind of keep the throttle into it. Tim Hammond, he's got a heck of a run here, and he is going to be probably moving up into P2. This is not the spot Andrew Himmelman wants to be through 1 and 2. It's so hard to carry that momentum, but he certainly is going to be doing his best here with just 4 laps to go, as TJ Buck is liking what he's seeing in his rearview mirror. Trucks running side by side. That is absolutely what you want to see as the leader with only a few laps to go, as Tim Hammond and Andrew Himmelman just pushing each other side by side. And here comes the 14 of Jeff Price, one of the guys who's already won early in this season, as they get by this 88 lap truck here. They are really, really fighting there for that second position. As the 4 truck gets into the outside wall a little bit, that is going to really hurt his chances.
Yeah, you can see it right there. He's moving spots left and right, now falling, or now dropped to the 5th position. I was going to say he's falling into the clutches of Jamar Dumas in the number 28 machine, but now Dumas is up into 4th. Jeff Price now into 3rd, and look at Tim Hammond, late lunge off into turn number 1, just 2 laps to go. He's trying to sniff that race lead into the inside of TJ Buck, and now TJ Buck's in those marbles. We just saw the 4 machine of Himmelman struggle with that high groove. Now that TJ Buck's up there, it looks like Hammond here in the number 25 machine going to take the race lead, but the 84 going to drop down. And look at the 14, Jeff Price. He's having connection issues, but he's going to try and take it 3 wide with 1 lap to go here at Texas Motor Speedway. 3 wide for the race lead.
Yeah, I got to say, Jeff Price took a heck of a move right there to try to get this race lead on the outside through 1 and 2. That's going to be so challenging to make that stick. He's a little bit high, has to get out of that throttle. Those connection issues certainly aren't helping that, as TJ Buck, he's got a decent truck length lead through 1 and 2, but I don't think that 25. Is TJ, the Jeff Price gets back into him. Tim Hammond, is he going to give him a little bump? No, it's going to be TJ Buck taking your race win here at Texas.
What a finish, TJ Buck. Second time here on 3Y TV he's gone to victory lane. Both times here at the Texas Motor Speedway. Actually, 3rd time he's been to victory lane here on 3Y TV. Also got the win in the dual race. He just knows how to get the job done here at Texas. 2 races on 3Y TV at Texas in the Simbox Truck Series. Both times That man right there, that Captain Crunch machine out front. And Drew, you know what that reminds me of? Remember when Brendan Gaughan was the man to beat at Texas Motor Speedway in the trucks? You just couldn't touch Brendan Gaughan here? I think TJ Buck's found a little bit of the Brendan Gaughan magic. How about that?
Absolutely. Brendan Gaughan was one of my favorite drivers back in the early to mid 2000s when that 62 truck just really, really dominated here at Texas Motor Speedway. Yeah, and TJ Buck absolutely kind of reminiscent of that. Certainly able to capitalize on the kind of misfortunes of guys running up front early, and TJ Buck able to hold off a strong challenge by Tim Hammond, Jamar Dumas, Jeff Price, and Andrew Himmelman, and able to bring that 84 Captain Crunch scheme to victory lane as he burns it down here on that Lone Star and Bars start finish line here at Texas Motor Speedway.
I'll tell you what, how about that for if you burning it down right here at the start finish line? The flagman getting a face full of smoke. That's a pretty darn good view here at Texas Motor Speedway. I'll tell you what, TJ Buck is one happy driver, folks. We're going to step away for just a brief moment. We're going to line up some interviews for you with your top 3 finishers here tonight as TJ Buck continuing out there on the racetrack. But we will be back in just a brief moment here on 3 White TV. All right, folks, welcome back to the Texas Motor Speedway. It was an absolute thriller here tonight. What a finish out at the front with Tim Hammond running down TJ Buck. But this man who's alongside me, Jamar Dumas, able to get himself up into the top 3 with a late pass on Jeff Price. Jamar, kind of a topsy-turvy race here tonight. We saw it race very similar to a super speedway. We saw some big ones out there. We saw a lot of side-by-side racing. We saw drivers putting themselves in position to win. You looked like you were in one of those positions where you might have come away with a checkered flag. Didn't quite pan out for you here tonight, but a top 3. Solid run for you in that 28 machine. Tell us about it.
Yeah, it was a great run. Started close to the back, but just kind of paced myself throughout the race and came home with the top 3.
Yeah, definitely a great run for you in that truck. I mean, you know, you haven't had the best start to the season, so how important is it to come to a track like Texas Motor Speedway, come away with a solid finish?
Oh, it's great. Last week had a lot of trouble. The week before wasn't my best week either, but I like Texas. I like the 1.5 miles. So hopefully I can continue running top 5, top 10s.
I definitely had a lot of pace here tonight in that truck. And tell us a little bit about the track conditions, because I wasn't exactly expecting Texas Motor Speedway to race like a super speedway, but obviously you had a lot of practice time here tonight. Was that a bit of a surprise to you? Was it part of the track temperature? Because the track temperature was about 65 degrees Fahrenheit, which gave you guys a lot of grip tonight.
I actually expected it to get a little bit further out the longer the run, but we kept together, especially at the end there. I just expected it to fall off more than it did, and it didn't.
Well, I'll tell you what, even if it didn't fall off, a very strong run for you and that truck here tonight. Next week, though, if this race like a super speedway, next race 100% is a super speedway. Next week we go to the Talladega Super Speedway, 98 laps around Dega. Are you one of those drivers who likes going to super speedways, or are you one of those drivers who does not enjoy racing with the plates?
I actually like Talladega and Daytona. Again, it's kind of a roll of the dice. Stay out of the big one, kind of pace yourself, be there at the end, and anyone has a shot.
Well, definitely going to be interesting to see who comes away with the big shot next week at Talladega. But Jamar, before we let you go, you got any shout-outs for us?
Yeah, Chip Hansen painted my truck, and thanks to Chip for doing that for me.
All right, well, Jamar, congratulations on a podium finish here tonight on 3 Wide TV. We'll see you next week at Talladega. Best of luck at the Super Speedway.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
All right, well, folks, that was tonight's third place finisher, but I do believe Mr. Drew Eisenman has caught up with tonight's runner-up, Tim Hammond. There, Drew.
You got a copy?
Yes, I do, guys. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. It was a heck of an entertaining race. We kind of saw the race go topsy-turvy a few times. We saw the entire top 5 get taken out at a certain point. Can you give us a little rundown of how your race went, Tim?
So I should not have finished second, but through the grace of God, I was given multiple opportunities to come back because after the first 2 pit stops, I missed my pit box each time. So I had to reverse it, get it back in, and I was dropping to like 13th, 14th place, and then a caution would come out, bring me back up, and the guys were pitting because they pitted way before I did. So they were trying to catch back up on tires and stuff. So it saved me and would bring me back to the top 5. And I was like, okay, we can manage this. And fantastic racing by all the guys up front. It was awesome.
Certainly was entertaining here up in the booth. That last lap, you were right on TJ's back bumper. I mean, every single time we see these close races, I got to ask, was the thought of a little bump and run crossing your mind there on that last lap?
Surprisingly not, just because I don't have it in me to do that. Now, if the guy did it to me previously, we might be able to discuss that.
I mean, I certainly understand that. You definitely want to race your competitors as they race you. So we have Talladega coming up. What's your mindset going into Talladega? Are you a guy that really enjoys restrictor plate racing? Are you a guy that dreads it? What's your mindset going into that race?
Well, I came into the season with a win at the duels. So when it comes to super speedways, my mind is on the win. I love super speedways. It's always a fantastic race. And Talladega is just going to be another great finish for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm definitely one of those guys that really enjoys restrictor plate racing, as long as it's kind of on occasion and not on a regular basis. Tim, you were just on the outside of the top 10 in points coming into this, and the second place finish certainly is not going to hurt your points standings. Are you a guy that really takes points into consideration when you're making your decisions and calculations when how to race guys during the race, or are you just a guy that's out there to finish as good as possible?
I'm the kind of guy that'll just go out there to try to finish as good as possible. But I will say before the race, I looked and seen who I needed to pass, and this may bump me up to about 7th, which is where I want to be.
Absolutely. It's always kind of nice to have that points position to fall back on. It kind of enables you to take chances, and when if you weren't in that position, you wouldn't be able to. So again, you're the only one of our top 3 to start inside the top 10. So a heck of a run for you, Tim. Is there anybody that you'd like to give a shout out to before we let you go?
Just a huge shout out to you guys for doing the broadcast and the whole NSRA league, and Jeff Price, my teammate. He was up there. We touched coming out of 4. He gives me a lot of pointers. He's fantastic.
Absolutely, Tim. Thank you for talking with us post race.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Well, that is tonight's second place finisher, Tim Hammond. But Drew, I'm making my way down to victory lane because TJ Buck in that number 84 machine, second time, like I said, that he's been to the Texas Motor Speedway here this season on 3YTV in these trucks in the National Sim Racing Association. And second time he's come to victory lane. TJ, you got that Brendan Gaughan magic going on right now from the early 2000s. Tell us a little bit about your race.
Oh, man. Well, it was a lot of fun. It felt like IndyCar, honestly, with like all the drafting and the, the close racing and stuff. Ben Adams, Andrew Himmelman, literally anybody who was in the top 5 for more than a couple laps was like, it was just like all out, just slugfest for this win. And I knew for a fact that for me, it was going to have to be a short run for me to get the win because, I was using my stuff way too fast on all the long runs. I was dropping back after like 20, 30 laps. So I'm glad that the caution came out with 10 to go. That was really helpful for me. But so I was like, okay, this is it. This is time. Now, I don't have to worry about saving stuff. I can just go. And I did. I went.
Yeah, and definitely once you got out front, you did a fantastic job of holding on to that position, holding a very defensive line. It looked like maybe Tim had gotten underneath you there, coming to the white flag, and it all panned out where you were able to get out front right there coming to the checkered flag.
Oh yeah, we talked we talked about that. Oh, sorry. We talked about that, and the first time that he like actually got underneath me, I was like, no, maybe I should go for a block, maybe I shouldn't, and then I hesitated and I like half blocked and then just slowed us both down, and then some people caught up to us. So I'm glad that actually worked out.
Yeah, very, very impressive here. And like I said, you got that Brendan Gaughan magic second win here at Texas Motor Speedway in just a few races that we've been broadcasting here on 3YTV. Is this a racetrack that just suits your style? And what is it about Texas Motor Speedway?
Well, I'm going to be 100% honest with you. But the preseason race, I bought the track, so I don't know. I definitely like the mile and a halves, but I also hate Atlanta, so I don't know. it all depends. This race track is just kind of predictable. Like it's got the predictability of a super speedway where you like know what line's going to work and where you need to be to put yourself in a good position. So I guess maybe because I did a lot of super speedway racing in different leagues and stuff that that's why it suited me better. The draft, obviously, my garage man, Mr. Patch Notes, he he told me that the trucks were going to be drafting a lot more than usual. So yeah, I don't know. Just it's kind of like super speedway racing until the tires fall off, and maybe that's why.
Well, definitely a strong run here tonight. Very, very impressive to see you back victory lane here at Texas Motor Speedway. TJ, next week we go to the High Banks Talladega Super Speedway, the 2.66 mile super speedway, the fastest track in pretty much the entire world if they didn't throw a restrictor plate on it. What are your thoughts about restrictor plate racing?
Well, like I said, a super speedway veteran. I'm gonna be. I think I'll be in contention for another win, but at the same time, it's a super speedway, so you can't really promise anything. And if I don't know if you remember correctly, but the last time we spoke, I promised you I would win at Daytona, and that didn't happen. So, so we're here. We are, sort of, kind of hoping for something good at Talladega, but I'm not gonna put all my eggs in one basket.
Yeah, definitely had that great run in the duels, the Lynchburg duels prior to the Simbox 250 earlier this season in that number 84 machine. In fact, at that point you were 2 for 2 on 3-wide TV, but hey, you still got a pretty good winning percentage here on 3-wide TV in the National Sim Racing Association. So We won't rule you out next week at Talladega. Before we let you go, you got any shout-outs?
Well, first, I just want to say I almost won the duel, but I ran out of gas like 30 feet before the line and took out 1 million people. So I wasn't really 2 for 2, but I did well. Anywho, yeah, I'd like to thank everybody who watches the race when I send it to them. Josh, Brendan, Shane, Mike, everybody in the Bread Clan, Mickey, Cord, Joe, anybody who watches, thank you so much. And anybody who's watching now that I don't know. I saw well, my friend was watching and he's like, somebody's dad is rooting for him big time. I was like, who is it? He's like, I think it's a 30 car. So Josh Sobel's dad, shout out to you for being the biggest fan.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I didn't see him in the chat here tonight. He was definitely in the chat last week, and has been in the chat a lot of weeks. I know he's down in the area that was affected by the hurricane recently. So hope all is well with the Sobel family, and hopefully we can get him back in the chat here soon. But TJ, thanks for stopping by. Congratulations on the win here tonight, and hope to see you next week up here in the booth again.
Oh yeah, me too.
All right, well, folks, that is going to do it for our post-race interviews here tonight. Taking home the race win. And Drew, why don't you take us through tonight's finishing results?
Absolutely. TJ Buck, our race winner tonight, obviously brings it home in P1. Tim Hammond, who we interviewed, P2. Jamar Dumas, P3. Jeff Price, previous race winner this season, in P4. Andrew Himmelman, that late race contact with the outside wall off of turn 2 cost him a chance at a win, but still brings it home in the top 5. Justin White recovers well from contact and damage early on in this race to bring home a P6 finishing position. Robert Dudley brings home P7. Colin Ullery in P8. Ben Adams able to recover from a speeding penalty on pit road during green flag pit stops to bring home a top 10 in P9. And Jordan Schepler, a heck of a recovery, gets basically turned on lap 3 after winning the pole and is able to get that truck repaired and bring home a top 10, finishing in 10th position.
Yeah, if you had told me on lap number 5 that Jordan Scheffler was going to recover for a top 10, I would think he would be absolutely nuts, but great job for him to recover there. Finishing in the 11th position, Doug Milliner came into tonight just a few markers behind Bill Edwards. Edwards did a fantastic job of recovering as well there, finishing on the lead lap, got a wave around there right towards the checkered flag. He finishes 12th. Doug Neal in the 77 machine, not 100% sure what happened to him. Might have got a speeding penalty, but he was a strong runner in that Simbox truck here tonight, unfortunately finishing 1 lap down in 13th. Zach Howell was also involved in an early race scuffle with the outside retaining wall. He finishes 14th, 1 lap down. James Lorello involved in a heavy accident involving your 5 lead trucks around the halfway mark, finishes in 15th. GJ Boydell in the 014, kind of a quiet night for him, finishing 3 laps down. Aaron Mack, I think he had some contact with the outside wall during the race as well in that number 35 machine, finishing 4 laps down. Ray Heilig finishing in 7th. And folks, I don't need to mention, but tonight is the Ray Heilig presents the Ray Heilig 240. Ray Heilig finishing in the 18th position in the Ray Heilig number 7 machine. I could keep on saying Ray Heilig, but I think it's time to move on to the 19th place driver of Ben Mashbergen, finishing 10 laps down. Joey Doucette in the number 61 machine. He also had a great strong run going at one point here tonight, unfortunately finishing down in the 20th position there, Drew.
And Chris Darling, so much speed displayed in practice and in the race, led so many laps, and unfortunately involved in that huge wreck in the top, basically took out her entire top 5 at that point, brings it home P21. Paul Bilson had that, I believe, mechanical problem and is able to get that truck repaired and bring home 22nd. Triple J, Jeffrey Johnson Jr. in that 33 truck. We saw him take that huge hit in that wreck earlier in the race, finishes P23. Also involved in that wreck, Michael Mooney in the 88, brings home P24. Peter Certo, who I was pretty sure was going to establish orbit at a certain point in that 32 truck, brings it home P25. Matt Cherry, also involved in that top 5 wreck, brings it home P26, as was JT Poole, who brings it home 27th. And Nathan Maurer, another one of those trucks involved in that huge wreck early in the race, brings home P27, or rather P28. And then Monty Glover in the 10 truck, P29. And unfortunately, David Visser in the 69 truck, unable to start the race. starts at the tail of the field and finishes at the tail of the field in P30.
Yeah, definitely not the night he was looking for here tonight. But folks, make sure you join us same place, same time here on 3Wide TV next week. It's going to be Talladega Super Speedway action. We're going to see a lot of bump drafting. We're going to see a lot of side-by-side, 3-wide, high speeds. It's going to be a thriller next week. If you thought tonight was good, just wait for next week. Make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. That adds to the exposure of the National Sim Racing Association on YouTube. Yes, it definitely does help. Not only helps the channel, but it helps the league as well become a little bit more visible, and as well as us over at 3Wide TV, it helps us out as well. I want to give a huge shout out to our friends over at Sim TV for the camera angles that we bring you each and every week. And for myself, Peter Short, Drew Eisenman, we'll see you guys next week right here on the same channel for more Simbox Truck Series action. But until then, we will see ya!